standing for a moment. Is Reverend Hunt here for our invocation today? I don't have him on the agenda, but evidently he's not here. I'll give our invocation. Dear God, we ask your blessing upon those assembled here today, and we ask that this council and this mayor do their best to best represent the interests of the citizens of our city. In your name, we ask this. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Gavaracki.
Present.
Councilman Templin.
Present.
Councilman Cisco.
Present.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
Councilman DeGiulio.
Here.
Pro Tem Keenan.
Here.
Treasurer Armstrong.
Present.
Mayor Mategas.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. I ask for a motion for corrections and approval of the agenda for February 10th this evening, please.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Templin,
Supported.
supported by Councilman DeGiulio.
Mayor, if we could,
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan.
I would like to remove the two, under resolutions, items 2 and 3 off of the agenda until next Tuesday when we can schedule the work session.
Here's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Cisco. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask any other, I think we have to vote on this
Mr.
item.
Chairman, I don't know which group it falls under, but if there's going to be a discussion of the, I noticed I received something I'd been asking for, and that was a comparative overtime report. But if that's one of these items, I'd like to remove that to discuss it in a little detail if we may.
No, these are the resolutions 2 and 3 at the end of our agenda this evening. The Melvindale CG Gap Jail Services and the CG Gap, or Gap feasibility study.
I'm just saying if there are any other items you would entertain removing or at least excluding from the consent agenda.
No, they're not.
Okay, well, never mind. Thank you anyway.
Okay, you're welcome. Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote, and this is to remove items under resolutions 2 and 3. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Then I'll ask for the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, same sign. That's carried. So the approval of the minute, I see that we have the city administrator and the city attorney from Melvindale, and we'd like to have a meeting with you and such other, the mayor and council, at a work session next Tuesday, if that's possible, at 6 o'clock. So
we'll be here for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We'll go to approval of the minutes for January 27th.
I would like to point out that the ones you got emailed were changed, and it was the new ones you have in front of you with a colored agenda, and the only change from what you were emailed to what you have today is on page 1, 2. It's on the last page, and it's just in reference to the Allen Park Code of Ordinances. It did state section 2-284. It should be 2-824. So I just wanted to point that out before you guys adopted them.
So motion for approval of the minutes of January 27th, please.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Templin.
Aye.
Support.
Mayor,
Councilman Cisco.
I have a change in the minutes on my resolution from our last meeting on the 27th, where I brought a resolution before the council to terminate the employment and suspend our city administrator. Motion was made by me and was supported by Mr. Templin, not Mr. Hayes.
No, it was by Mr. Hayes.
Actually, I talked to Mike and he got it wrong. You did support.
And then I talked.
And then you talked to him?
Yeah. Because I had actually both.
I withdraw any comments I just made, except for the first parts where I explained it.
All right, if there's no other questions, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of the minutes of January 27th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried, thank you. Approval of the minutes for February 3rd, 2015.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Hayes. Do I have a support?
Support.
Supported by Councilwoman Gavareki. Is there any discussion, questions?
And the end time was changed to reflect. I did have the 11:02 as the adjournment. It was 7:25, so those were corrected as they do also.
Thank you. Hearing no questions or comments, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That's carried. We're at presentations tonight, and we're pleased to have our Police Chief James Wilkowitz and our Fire Chief Doug LaFond doing a duet here.
I do the short straw.
Yeah, Justin. Can everybody hear me okay? Good evening, everybody. Let me get my notes out here, so.
It's like good cop, bad cop. Since you're in white, you're the good cop. Eh?
That's right. Firemen are always good guys. Good evening, everybody. I want to start off tonight by asking for everybody's prayers for our former Deputy Fire Chief, Dave Cervetter. Dave suffered a heart attack this last Saturday, and he has been in the hospital since. Hopefully going to be discharged tomorrow. He had to have some blockages removed, and I asked him if it would be okay if I brought that up tonight, and he said it would be. So obviously all of us in the fire department are wishing Dave the best, and I'm sure you all are too. So I just wanted to let you know what was going on with that. I told him that the chief's job was going to give him too much stress, but he believes me now. I hope you all had a chance. I don't think you all didn't. Did a look at our new rescue. It's sitting outside out there. And as you all know, it was 90% paid for by a federal grant. And we're real happy to have that and brought it up tonight for you all to take a little look at it. It was placed into service last Tuesday, and as of today, it's already responded to 75 emergency calls in its first week. So we're putting it to good use. I'm going to start off just by talking about some of the programs the fire department offers, just make sure everybody's aware of it. And for the TV audience at home, I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of the things we do. So I'm just going to kind of go through this. And I think a lot of this covers many of the things that the advisory committee were looking for the fire department to do, and most of these things we've been doing for years. So the fire department continues to offer many different programs through our fire marshal's office. Many of these programs were suggested by the advisory committee. However, we have had many of them in place for many years. Our goal in the future is to ensure that the public is more aware of all these programs that we offer. This will be made much easier through the use of our new city website, which is now much more user-friendly for us to put different things up there, and depending on the season, and different helpful hints. Every year, the fire department visits all of our elementary schools, and we teach fire safety classes to kindergarten through fifth graders. We also go in and speak about fire safety at Palouche and at Maple Heights senior housing facilities, and to many of our community groups. Since December, I think I've spoken to 3 different community groups myself, just about different topics that they want us to come in and talk about, whether it's Christmas tree safety or general fire safety for their home. But we get out there and we do a lot of that. We also participate in the annual career days at both Cabrini and the Allen Park High School. And in fact, Deputy Chief Can was at Cabrini today, speaking to the 10th through 12th graders that had interest in either in the fire service or in EMS. So he spent the day over there talking to some of our young people. We currently have a free smoke detector program, and that's for any seniors or low-income Allen Park residents. And this program was all funded through the CDBG grant program. And all they have to do is either stop by the fire station. I believe we still have some at the community center, and I believe the clerk's office still have them. And they just fill out a little short form, basically says, Allen Park resident, and then either they're senior or low income, and we'll give them as many as they need for their home. We have a little sheet that kind of explains where they're supposed to put them, and if they need 4 or 5, that's fine. We have plenty of them to give out. And for years, we've also given out free smoke detector batteries, and that's funded through Eveready. Pretty much whenever we get low on them, I just get on their website and I email them, and they send me out 2 or 3 cases of 9-volt batteries. So, and that's for any Allen Park resident. So, time change comes around, you don't feel like spending 20 bucks on batteries, just stop by the fire department and show your ID that you're an Allen Park citizen, and we'll be more than happy to give you some. Another program we have for seniors is our residential Knox Box program. And any senior or disabled resident can obtain a Knox Box, and they're a key safe is what they are, for free from the fire department. And this is, it remains the property of the fire department, but we loan it out for as long as the resident needs it. And when that need, comes to an end, whether they move out or something, changes in their life that they no longer need it, we just ask that they return it to the department. These boxes were also purchased over the last few years with donated funds and also with CDBG grants. And I'm trying to remember, it was one of the community groups that gave us, and they're going to hate me because I can't remember which one it was. It was the small business owners. The Rotary bought a bunch of them for us one year. And then we've used grants, and we have 200 or 300 of them out there right now out in the community. And what they do is we put the person's key inside of this little baby safe that hangs on the front door. And we lock their house key up inside of it, and we have keys that are secured in each one of our fire department vehicles. So when we come up on a house that has one of these Knox boxes, we release the key from our vehicle, we open their little safe, we retrieve the house key, and then we can gain entry to their house, which is way easier than kicking down front doors or having to climb through windows and that sort of thing. And we literally utilize these things almost on a daily basis. They've been a real lifesaver. The construction guys probably hate me because they're selling a lot fewer doors in the city. But it's really great because a lot of our seniors, it might be just a slip and fall or something like that, and they just need help up off the floor, and we hate to have to kick in their door to do something like that. So I covered all that. We also have Knox boxes available for purchase through the Knox Company, and I'm sure Councilman Keenan is aware of this because he has one in his business. And you get an application through the fire department, and you purchase it on your own through the Knox Company and install it. And what they are is they're for the front of businesses. We have certain areas in the city where it's required, mostly the development up on the hill, but we suggest them to all new business owners that come into town. And it's the same idea, but instead of just hanging on the door, these are actually mounted to the front of the business. The keys to the business are in there, alarm codes, that sort of thing, so that way we get fire alarms at 3 in the morning, we can access the business. If we find out it's a false alarm, we'll reset it, we'll lock the door up, and if your numbers, we have them put their phone number in there, we'll give them a call and say, hey, you can turn around and go back home, everything's fine, we lock your business up. And again, it saves a lot of front doors, and it's a couple $100 for a Knox box, is a lot cheaper than a new front door for the business. All these programs operate at no cost to the city, and the details can either be obtained in our section of the New City website, or you just call the station at 313-928-0024, and that's for business owners or seniors that are interested in getting a Knox box. I'm going to move on to our run totals for last year. Last year's record run total of over 3,300 calls for service was our busiest year ever. Of those 3,300 calls, approximately 2,700 were for medical assistance. The Allen Park Fire Department has responded to medical calls since its inception in the 1940s. In 1999, we upgraded to the paramedic level, and we began transporting patients to the emergency room. It's our opinion and the opinion of many of our residents that having this service provided by the fire department is far superior to the alternatives, and we're told that quite often, and it was reiterated during the last millage vote that people really wanted to keep this service. This year we're on track to generate approximately $700,000 in revenue through this transporting service. Move on to grants. We've been very fortunate in the area of grant funding. Over the last 7 years, the Allen Park Fire Department has secured more than $3.4 million in federal grants for things such as 2 new fire trucks, the new ambulance that we have sitting outside this evening, new SCBAs, and personal protective clothing for every member of the department. We've also been awarded new fire hose, nozzles, power saws, ventilation fans, 2 sets of Jaws of Life, and countless other tools and equipment. We also received a grant in 2012 in the amount of $1.26 million to pay for the salary and benefits of 6 firefighters for the last 2 years. Some of the events that we're involved in around town. For the last 7 years, Allen Park Fire has held its annual open house during Fire Prevention Week every October. This year's open house was attended by over 600 people and was a huge success. The event is something we can never hold without help of our local businesses, civic organizations, residents, and the Allen Park firefighters who donate their time and money to make the event a success. The last 4 open houses have been held at no cost to the city, and have been totally funded through donations by businesses and the Allen Park Firefighters Union. Every year, the Allen Park Fire Department also participates in many city events, and the Allen Park firefighters donate their time while off duty to make this participation possible. I'm going to get on to what everybody's waiting for me to talk about, and that's overtime. We've had five firefighters off with on-duty related injuries and 3 firefighters off on Family Medical Leave Act since the beginning of this fiscal year, for a total of 5,715 lost work hours since July 1st. Despite that, we are currently 2.1% or $20,000 lower in overtime budget used than we were in January 1st, 2014. If we take into account the 70% salary reimbursement we receive through the workman's comp for the firefighters who are off on duty-related injuries, we're in much better shape budget-wise than we were at this time last year. What we must remember is that every time we lose a firefighter to an injury, we lose 50.4 hours per week of productivity. Before the hiring of our newest firefighter, we were losing 201.6 hours per week in productivity due to duty-related injuries. I lost my place. Oh, and we had 3 injured firefighters and being short 1 due to the resignation of DC Cervetter, who we backfilled his position. So we were down 200 hours a week, essentially. We were replacing approximately half that time using overtime, and only when absolutely necessary for the safety of the citizens and for our firefighters. Once our new firefighter, who started yesterday, finishes his 30-day training period, and the 2 firefighters currently receiving physical therapy return to work this spring, it is my hope that we will once again come in under budget on overtime this year. We currently have 1 firefighter who, because of his injury, will not be returning to work. As soon as I'm given the okay to replace him, the addition of another firefighter will bring our staffing back up to 22 and further reduce overtime. As I'm sure you all know, the less people that are available to complete a given task, the greater the propensity for injuries. We are currently accomplishing tasks with 5 firefighters that were accomplished with 8 or 9 in the past. We are doing everything we can to minimize the physical strain on our employees, but in many situations these injuries cannot be avoided due to the emergency situations during which they are occurring. It is my hope that the addition of 2 new firefighters and the return of the 2 that are currently undergoing physical therapy will lessen the risk of more injuries to our firefighters in the future. I hope that I have cleared up some of your questions you have regarding the fire department activities and the status of our overtime expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, council?
Yeah, Chief, I just wonder, I know it's been a couple years now, but since we do live in a town that's got a lot of bungalow homes, will you let the community know about the stair chair too? A little bit about what that does? And,
Oh, our stair chairs?
yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's been a few years since that
Yep,
was given.
that was actually the Masons that helped us out greatly with getting the stair chairs, and I should actually give them some props too. For the last 2 years, they've purchased and served all the hot dogs for our open house, and that was one of the community organizations that I was speaking of. A few years ago, the Masons did a couple fundraisers for us, and they raised money. The stair chairs are about $3,500 a piece, and they raised money 2 years in a row to buy us 2 new stair chairs. And what they are, it's basically a chair. It's all made out of metal. They fold down. They fit on our rescues. They have wheels on the bottom of them so that we can wheel a patient, but you can strap a patient in with seat belts. And they have in the back of them, I don't know if any of you ever, I'm sure you have, had experience with an appliance dolly, how they have those on the back, those rubber kind of, I don't know, tracks on them so that they'll go downstairs. Well, these stair chairs have that on it. They have extended handles so that basically we can put somebody in this chair that's upstairs, strap them in it, and then we can essentially slide them down the stairs instead of trying to carry them down. Those chairs help tremendously, because I remember when I was riding on the rescue, it was more than one night that I threw my back out trying to carry somebody down from a second-story bungalow. And just want to reiterate, that was thanks to the Masons they really stepped up on that, and they have for years with our department. We're kind of their little adopted department, I think, in the city. Whenever we need something, we kind of call the Masons, and they come to the rescue. So. But yeah, they help with back injuries a lot. And what the problem is we're seeing now is we're not seeing a lot of back injuries for these guys that are off. They are rotator cuff injuries, knee injuries, those sort of things. And a lot of it is essentially, and every one of them happened on the fire ground. And it's essentially just from guys trying to do too much.
I bring up the stair chair because I would agree with you. Not only is it beneficial to the firefighters, but I think also to the resident.
Oh yeah, it's
because
much
it's
more
very
comfortable.
difficult to carry somebody down those little narrow pathways, and I think that's something that is another advantage to having our own fire department. I imagine there's probably not a lot of those out there on.
No, because like I said, they're about $3,500 a piece, so it's not something you see a lot of non-fire department rigs carrying. And that goes for a lot of our equipment. We really do get a lot more help from different avenues than other services do. Like, all of our heart monitors were all purchased by hospitals for us. They're $35,000 a piece, and we haven't bought one in 20 years. I mean, every time we need one, we either give Oakwood a call or Wyandotte, and they always step up and buy us a new one. So, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. LaFawn.
Councilman DiGiulio.
How many of the seniors have taken advantage of the lock boxes?
We have between 250 and 300 of them out in the city right now.
Okay, and can they be removed by somebody that just decides to go take one off their house?
Meaning like stolen,
Yes,
I suppose,
they can.
but it wouldn't do them any good. They
Well-
can't get into it.
You mean they can't get into it when they take it home? They can't get the key out?
No.
Impossible.
The only people who can get that key out is the fire department, unless they use a gasoline-powered cutoff saw, as I've seen video.
So, I mean, it can be taken off if
If somebody had access to dynamite or something, they probably could get it
Okay,
out.
and the firefighter that's off, is
I have
he,
3 of them off.
Okay, well, the one is it, the one that's not returning to work? Is he injured here in the city?
Yes.
Is he injured on duty?
Yes.
Where was that at?
Where? On I-94 during a car accident.
Was he hit?
No.
Oh.
I can't get into a lot of detail about it because of HIPAA law, but
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilman Hayes.
Couple of questions, Chief, and I appreciate your report. I wouldn't be totally honest if I didn't raise the question I've raised for the last 3 years. I noticed I was finally provided the information I'd sought for the last 5 months, and I noticed that you were originally budgeted around $121,000 of overtime this year, and at some point, the budget was amended. I don't know if we knew about the amendment, but it was racked up to $155,000. And I appreciate your saying that you have several people off, and that would certainly contribute to the use of overtime. But according to what I see, you've consumed 65% of that in half a year, so you have 35% to go. And at this pace, if you continue going at this pace, you will be over some $50,000, notwithstanding the $35,000 increase you already had this year. The other thing, you mentioned once again, you hope to come in under budget. Well, I'd like to remind you that last year you weren't under budget. You had 2 increases in your overtime budget last year. And I don't recall hearing about as many people being injured last year. I'm sure there were some. But I guess I'm wondering, did you have any role in the budgeting process, or are these things just, sent to you by someone on high? Because we don't seem to be very good at our budgeting, because we have this pattern of under budgeting or overspending. You can call it what you may. I'm not going to sit here and second guess. I know as a business proposition, overtime is something you should avoid like the plague. And I don't think we have a good history of avoiding overtime. Maybe some of it's unavoidable, I don't doubt that. But we have to figure out a way. We can't end up with being $50,000 over budget here, and the police has a similar kind of problem. I'll get into it if the chief talks about it. But I just wonder about that. 121,000 went to 155, so it's a $34,000 increase already this year, and we've used 65% of that thus far this year. So I just wondered if you'd address that, and particularly your comment about once again we'll be under budget. I don't think you were ever under budget that I'm aware of in the last several years. Thank you.
which question would you like me to answer first? You kind of lost me.
Okay.
You asked a few of them.
Is it your statement that you've been under budget in overtime in the recent years?
Last year, at the end of the year, I came in under budget on overtime, I believe.
After the 2 increases in your budget? And I think you were still over, frankly.
Budgets are amended as it relates to the situation that's happening. We cannot predict that we will have 4 firefighters with injuries such as they were during budget time. That's 200 hours, over 200 hours a week of lost productivity. And these aren't strained backs we're talking about. We're talking about surgeries. We're talking about One firefighter's been off for 16 months.
And you also mentioned that you get 70% of their wage, they get paid 100% of their pay, do they not?
Yes, sir.
And you get reimbursed from workers' comp salary, right? Whereas
Right.
in my business, if you were off, you got your 70%, that's all you got. So they have that additional benefit.
I didn't
but-
negotiate the contract,
Yeah.
sir.
But I think if you look at your records, you'll find that you weren't under budget last year, and you had 2 increases. And I understand, budgeting are just a projection. I guess what I'm saying is maybe we ought to start projecting a little more accurately, because we start out with these lowball budget numbers, and then we amend them. I don't even know if we were given benefit of seeing that amendment. I don't think it came to us for a resolution. I'm unaware of it. I wouldn't have voted for it, because we don't get that kind of information. We're disclosed from knowing these things. But I'm just concerned at the end of the year, when you're 50,000 over, and maybe the police is 100,000 over, or whatever, that's 10 months of rent next door that we could have paid between the two of them. So that's where I'm concerned, okay? And I'm not trying to be critical.
I'm just trying to figure out how to, I'm trying to find your question and trying to answer it. That's all I'm trying to do. When I said that 70% reimbursement on their wages, yes, that will offset, because it's all about money, funds coming in, funds going out. It will help offset those overages. That's why we have workmen's compensation insurance.
Okay, so
is
you
to
have
offset our costs.
70% of that money coming back.
70% of their salaries coming
Yes,
back.
right.
So let's say their salaries are 50,000 each. That's $200,000. 70% of that is $140,000. That's going to be way more money than what I'm going to spend over budget on overtime. Overtime is cheaper than hiring more employees. That is just a known thing, because especially our new hire employees, the point I'm getting at is overtime, you don't have to pay double benefits on overtime. It's not time and a half health insurance on overtime. See what I'm saying? I mean, we could hire more people to offset the overtime, but it's going to cost you more than just paying the overtime.
And certainly, you wouldn't consider part-time people who wouldn't require as many benefits. You wouldn't consider
We have a part-time,
quasi-volunteer
we have a part-time
support
firefighter
staff.
program, sir. We have had for a year and a half. Right, currently, we don't have any because we have no applications being put in. We're advertising at the community colleges, we're advertising as much as we can in all the firefighter organizations. We have 0 applications for part-time firefighters.
I wonder why that is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Wilkowitz.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was asked to prepare this report as a summary of police activity for 2014 as part of tonight's public safety presentation by myself and Chief LaFond. Before I get into a bunch of statistics and numbers, I would like to take this opportunity, if I could, to recognize and thank one of my police officers, Eli Fatilia, and also 2 of the firefighters, Joel Albright and Jason Pelty. Some of you are aware that last week we had a benefit hockey game to help out a family of an Allen Park student who unfortunately passed away at the age of 14. It was a great event. I saw some of you there. I don't know how many of you attended, but I know I saw a couple of you there. It appears that when all is said and done, that this event raised about $7,000 for this family, so that was quite a bit more than I actually thought, and there was pretty much packed stands at the house. So I just wanted to give them some public recognition for their efforts. It was quite an event. On to today's report. I was asked to prepare this report as a summary of police activity for 2014. In 2014, the Allen Park Police Department received 16,016 calls for police services. Of those approximate 16,000 calls, 3,542 police reports were generated and 569 persons were placed under arrest. The following is a list of some select events and the number that were reported to the Allen Park Police Department in 2014. We had 1 homicide in the city that occurred at the end of December, just prior to the expiration of the calendar year. We had 30 what are classified as aggravated or felonious assaults, 15 complaints of criminal sexual conduct, 12 robberies, 85 non-aggravated assaults, 93 burglaries, and 69 auto thefts. Of these reported offenses, the category that has the department most concerned is the rise in the number of burglaries or home invasions. This particular crime has seen a significant increase due in large part to the increase of prescription drug and heroin abuse throughout the entire metropolitan area. Also, the ages of the offenders committing these offenses has become younger, with many of the people we have arrested recently being in their teens or early 20s. This crime trend affects all communities, not just Allen Park. As we saw recently, a homeowner in Southgate shot and killed an intruder in his home during a home invasion. The perpetrator turned out to be his 19-year-old neighbor. One of the greatest assets we have in the fight against this type of crime is for our residents to be alert and to look out for one another. Please, if you see something suspicious, call 911 or our department. Also, the department is still encouraging citizens to join our Neighborhood Watch program. If you have a block group that would like to join, info is available on the city's website under the Police Department tab. Also, the Police Department has a prescription drug collection box in the lobby of the Police Department. I encourage the residents to drop off any unwanted or expired prescription drugs, particularly any psychotropic drugs or pain-killing medication, and we will safely dispose of them. We cannot accept any liquids or needles. The city administrator had also asked me to discuss the department's plans in response to the public safety issues that had been identified in the strategic plan. During the planning process, there were 7 goals identified for public safety, and they are as follows. Goal 1 was to utilize the city's new website and other communications to keep citizens informed about our public safety programs and resources. With the recent launch of the city's new website, which I think we can all agree is vastly improved prior to what we had prior, in its look and functionality, the police department page has been completely updated. There is now a wealth of information for police-related questions and our services. The department has trained one of our detectives in the updating of the website, and we envision that going forward, we will be able to provide timely and useful information to the citizens. In the category of other communications, the police department has launched in November of 2014 its own Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. These pages will be monitored and updated by the Allen Park Detective Bureau and myself. The purpose of these pages is to provide timely information to the citizens regarding all things police-related. In the short time that our pages have been active, we've received a significant number of people reading our pages, and as a result, we've been able to notify the public about police-related items like the recent snow emergency. The second goal that was identified was to develop the capacity to use text alerts to the citizens about public safety issues. The police department currently uses a free version of the Nixle software platform, which allows for text messaging for public safety messages. The difficulty with Nixle is that unless the account is upgraded to a pay version, the functionality is weak. Also, alerts only go out to individual citizens that sign up for notifications. Most police departments, including our own, have found that the use of social media is a more effective and cheaper means of delivering information. At this time, our department intends to focus on the use of the city's new website and our social media pages to alert residents. Item number 4 was to increase the outreach education on issues such as alcohol abuse, date rape, fire safety, and crimes targeting seniors. Currently, there are little resources for the police department to address the citizens in a crime prevention fashion or, in a crime prevention officer fashion. Lack of personnel funding and inadequate facilities makes such an endeavor difficult. The department has reinstated the Neighborhood Watch program, which does provide educational seminars on crime trends and deterring crime. And of course, the department is willing to speak at any citizen groups such as the Masons, the Elks Club, or any other club that would like us to speak at their community organization. Goal number 5, identify a community group to sponsor a Safety Town program for the city's children. Safety Town had been in the past been presented by the Allen Park Police Department in partnership with the Allen Park Public Schools. The department employee who was assigned as the school resource officer was in charge of the organization and administration of the Safety Town program. In addition, a large part of the funding that paid for Safety Town was donated by the police collective bargaining units. Currently, due to budget constraints, the SRO position has been eliminated, so there is no police personnel to guide the Safety Town program. I have had some discussions with Nancy Nick at the Recreation Department about the possibility of the Parks and Recreation taking over administering the program, in which case the police department would provide instruction and operate in a support capacity. Goal number 6 was to improve ordinance enforcement by educating the residents and business owners on city ordinances and providing contact information for the individuals in the city department responsible for enforcement. The police department has taken a much more active role in ordinance enforcement over the last 2 years. This increased enforcement has made a visible difference in both the community appearance and the actual number, and in actually reducing the number of ordinance violations occurring. The information regarding enforcement is readily available to the public. The city budget calls for the employing of 2 part-time ordinance officers, but for the longest time, we've only had 1 officer, Ken Simmerly, employed. I'm happy to report that the city has finally filled that 2nd position, and the new employee just began working yesterday. Goal number 7 was to expand the Neighborhood Watch program across the city. The Neighborhood Watch program is currently available to any citizen block groups who wish to participate. The program has been presented at council meetings and marketed on the city's website and cable channel. The department intends to try to drum up additional interest in Neighborhood Watch by promoting it through social media. If anyone, either here or watching at home, is interested in forming a Neighborhood Watch, the information is on the city's new website. That concludes my presentation for 2014. Going forward into 2015, we intend to increase training for officers in critical areas of police work. Recently, the department underwent defensive tactics and use of force training. The department has also joined in a consortium with the Wayne County Regional Police Training Center. This consortium offers a wide variety of police-specific training for the low cost of $25 per officer per year. Already, we have scheduled training for emergency vehicle operations this coming spring and fall. Also in 2015, the department hopes to add 2 more police officers to our current staff of 37 sworn officers. Our current budget calls for 38 officers, and the 2015-16 budget includes funding for 1 more for a total of 39. This increase in staff will help reduce the department's overtime budget by providing a greater relief factor. Unfortunately, the department has seen an unprecedented increase in officers experiencing long-term disabilities in this past year. In regards to some of the issues that Mr. Hayes raised about our department's overtime budget, I should probably take a little time to explain. We have 2 line items in our budget for overtime. We have a general overtime budget, which occurs that we run a charge against when we have your typical manpower shortage overtime. Somebody calls in sick and we're at minimum manpower for the road. But also out of that budget line item comes our hours that we schedule for grant reimbursed overtime and hours that are reimbursed overtime for police services that are contracted by an outside agency. If anybody here went shopping during the Christmas holiday shopping season, you saw the Allen Park Police working a significant number of hours on the hill directing traffic in and out of that complex due to issues with the entrance and egress there. So in our overtime budget that you see that ends in December, $22,000 of that amount is reimbursed by the property owners of the Fairlane Green shopping complex. Also, any traffic-related overtime for grants that we receive from for traffic safety purposes like drunk driving enforcement and seatbelt enforcement also come out of that general overtime expenditure line. So I pulled a report for offsetting overtime as of the end of January. And we had recovered $36,372.96 in offsetting overtime costs.
January of last year, or this year?
Just this past January.
Okay.
So My last entry here is actually January 28th, for a total of $36,372. Our second line item of overtime is you'll see in our budget, is titled Overtime AET. These are the officers that we put out on a traffic detail on a regular basis that's not grant funded. It's obviously budgeted by the city. That line item in our budget calls for $152,000. We divide that up into 12 months and just figure out how many details that we can run using those funds that are available to us. So it's a static number. We've had the same budget for this for at least the last 2 years. The outcome of that is an increased police presence in the community on the roadways in the city of Allen Park. That increased police presence also provides for a greater amount of traffic safety. And the last, and maybe the most interesting point of this, is that the officers that are out there enforcing the traffic laws on the roads in the city of Allen Park write a significant number of moving violations to motorists. These moving violations are tracked in a different fashion than our normal violations that are issued. There's a drop down on the menu for the electronic ticket rating in which they're categorized under. And then these violations are tracked through the 24th District Court, and as these violations are paid, funds come back to the city of Allen Park from those funds. So for last fiscal year, which would be 2013-2014, we budgeted $152,000, and then you have to add costs in for monetary fringe benefits like it's escaping me, FICA and workers' compensation. So the total cost was $163,628. The funds that were returned to the city from the court from the AET traffic violations was $303,656. In other words, the cost of running the program was exceeded by the revenues by $140,000, $28.26. In addition to the police services that are reimbursed, the grants that we currently have in place through the Department of Highway Traffic Safety totals $45,000 over this continuing fiscal year. So any violations that are issued under that program are not tracked separately. They are in the general pool as just anybody else that went out. But obviously, we're putting the officers out there at no cost because the officer's overtime rate and his monetary fringe benefits are being covered by this grant. So any violation fees that are collected that come back to the city, there's obviously some, but they're not tracked separately at this time. And that's all I have for overtime.
I have a question, Mayor.
Councilman Cisco?
As Chief Olkowitz, as you talk about social media and the police department get into that, I know there's other communities that show a map of the city where current crimes are going, a crime map of sorts. Are we doing that, or are we going to do that?
It's actually funny that you bring that up because the detective, I should probably give him some recognition. His name is Jim Thorburn. He's one of our detectives, and he is the individual that's been trained by the company that puts on our website and how to modify our website, but he is also predominantly the person that I have sent to training as far as social media. So he runs our web page and our Facebook page and our other pages as well. But he has been looking into this, and I had actually looked into this in the past. You probably recall when we had the DDAX grant, which was, everybody referred to it as the overtime grant for the Hill, where we had, that was, DDAX stood for the data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety. So as part of that program, we were supposed to have a crime mapping tool to do this. And I looked into it back then, and the platform that we use currently, the OSSI platform, that company, Crime Mapping, did not offer, they didn't have a product that worked with our product. So our conversation today was he's actually going to look around and get back in touch with Crime Mapping to see if that's something that we can offer, because obviously people are interested, and it's, you know, it not only helps the public to see where the crime's occurring, it it's a nice visual aid for us too, to say, okay, well, we're getting cars entered and the change taken out of the ashtrays, and it's all between, Malon and Moore on these certain blocks. So it's a beneficial tool, and we are looking further into seeing how we can marry it to our current software system.
So, and to go along with this, as you talk about Facebook and Twitter and things like that, would you be offering, because Allen Park seems to be, have a lot of social media going on, and a lot of crimes are reported on Facebook. So are you looking to do a real-time Facebook entries as to crimes committed in the city, besides trying to find out about a crime map?
We haven't entered crimes in as they occurred, but we would enter crime trends in, something like I had just described. Or if we had a significant event where we had information, I've always been a proponent, back when I was a detective sergeant, and I think I reiterated here, one of our best resources is the people that live here. I've solved more crimes because somebody's heard that something was going on and really started paying attention and was able to give us a tip that ended up solving crimes. So I guess the answer to your question is that we would use social media for those things, but not necessarily every single crime that as it took place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilman DiGiulio.
Just one question there, Chief Wilkowitz. On December 27th of 14, we had a murder in Cove Street. Has there been any arrests made there? Is there any progress in that?
There's no additional information that's come forward. We don't generally discuss ongoing investigations. The information that we have obtained would indicate that this was a retribution for some acts that did not occur in the city of Allen Park.
Thank you.
Councilman Hayes.
Chief, I believe I heard you say the AET overtime is alcohol enforcement, as I understood it. Is that correct?
Well, it goes by a couple different names. I say AET because back when I was on the road, that was the name that was given to it. It's also referred to as SET, but it's just AET and SET are the same thing.
Okay. Now, did I understand you to say that you actually have three categories of overtime? You have the regular, just police overtime, then you have this other one, and then this alcohol one, I thought I heard you say you had three categories. Because the data I get only has the two listed, the regular and the AET, as it's designated here.
Yeah. Everything that's not AET overtime goes in the other category.
Okay.
Even if it's reimbursed or it's grant funded.
All right.
So the expenditure line
Right.
doesn't reflect the offsets.
The offsets.
Yes.
And so is there a revenue category for the offsets?
Yes, there is. But it's I believe it's set at 50,000, the revenue line, and we have some other minor stuff that we do that's reimbursed, like the high school football games, but the two big ones would be the 45,000 that we're getting in the seatbelt and OWI, and the 22,000 that we got for the traffic help during the holiday season. So
you budgeted around 50,000 of expected revenue,
yes,
and you budgeted this year 73,000 expected overtime, but then it was later raised to 117,000, up 44,000, just like the fire department was. Somewhere along the line, unbeknownst to us, I guess.
actually the 117 was my original budgeted amount.
Okay. Well, according to the data I got, they had the original amount was 70. I mean, these are the data that I got from Mrs. Folks' office. And then, because I was trying to compare the two reports, I got the, this overtime report that you guys used to do, and I used to get regularly, and then they stopped giving it to us for God only knows what reason. Now we get it again. And then I was trying to compare that to the payroll information, and according to that, there was a little disparity because it said that you had consumed 116,319 of the 117,000 already this year, which is 99% of the overtime budget in the general category, and you'd consumed about 50% of the AET so-called other stuff. Now, I don't know what the offsets are, and I take your word at it. But the point is, last year, your budget was increased once for overtime, unlike the fire, which was increased twice. My concern is, you kind of have a sense of these things. I mean, you both have been in the business for some number of years. Why don't we just start out with if it's going to be a higher number, I don't like the idea of it, but I'd rather have a higher number to start with, and let's live within what we're going to live within. And we can always talk, well, we didn't know we we're going to have 3 guys off. Well, you're going to anticipate you're going to have somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get sick, somebody's going to have a disability. That's the nature of the work. And you have a historical picture of how many people are off. But what concerns me is I don't believe last year we had the same numbers of people off, 5 people in the fire department off at one given time, and yet we consumed an awful lot of overtime. So those, I don't want to call them excuses, those explanations ring a little hollow to someone like me who's used to being in a business where I got the crap beat out of me when I had an hour overtime. You see what I'm saying? That's where I'm coming from.
I see what you're saying. And if you go back over historical budgets and you look at our, like I said, we've used the same dollar amount basically for AET for at least the last 2 years, maybe even the last 3 years. But if you look at our historical line item for just general overtime, it's been reduced significantly over the last 2 years. Now, I'm not saying overtime expense has necessarily been reduced. I'm saying that the line item that's in the budget, I believe if you look at my budget from 2 years ago, I think my overtime line item was about $175,000. In this year's budget, it's listed at 117. So I understand what you're saying is that I would agree with you. You have to look at the historical comparison, and if you want to use 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever you want to pick, and say in the general operation of this department, they on average incur X amount of overtime, be that whether it be a lot of injuries in a year, or you have a lot of crime that requires investigative hours, or whatever it is. I think you can generally get a pretty good sense of what you're spending on average throughout a year. I think that would be the best purpose to use for budgeting purposes. I can't say that $117,000 is a number that I would necessarily agree with as being, exact.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate it. And I want to also commend you on the Facebook page. I have consulted it, and you did a nice job when you were notifying people of snow. And again, not everybody looks at it. I happen to be a devotee of that sort of thing, and I like to pay attention to what's going on, and I think there's a lot of good information, and I think you've done a particularly good job in that. And I think the fire department, for their point, they've got a lot of stuff on there. I think they got a Facebook site, and I confer with theirs too, so I appreciate that. And thank you for your candid answers.
Seems to be the way everybody communicates nowadays, so,
Any other questions?
And it's
Council?
free, which is the best part, so. Any other questions?
I'm going to ask you the question, although it doesn't reflect you. You know, it's one of the issues that we have up here, at least, I shouldn't say I can only speak for myself, but you made reference in your report to a new ordinance officer. This is the first I've heard of that. I came up today to pick up some mail at City Hall and found out that we had hired a new person in the building department. Why it's so painful for somebody to send an email out, and it wouldn't be you, and I'm not directing at you, it could be the HR manager, administrator, the secretary. Hey, we extended an offer to such and such a person for such and such a position. This is what the offer was. This is his qualifications. He's accepted. He starts on such and such a date. Why we don't have that respect up here as a council to have that ahead of time and have some foreknowledge before it's public information. I don't know, but with that, I'm just going to ask you, who is the new employee so that if we see him, we can recognize him?
His first name is Vince, and for the life of me, I can't remember his last name right now. Dubias. He has some experience as a building inspector, and
And he's
Lingenberg?
part-time.
He was a former DPW, and then when he retired from DPW, not here, another community, he went to work doing some inspections, building inspections for HUD, I believe it was.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
he's going to be the guy that we're going to hope to use to target on more of you know, I kind of use Ken Simmerly as residential, and with his background, we're hoping to use him on more of the business-oriented violations, so.
So it's definitely needed in both positions, so I'm thankful for it, but it would be a nice thing to have a heads up.
Chief, can I ask a question? You said we had 569 arrests last year, or 300? I don't remember.
569.
Yeah. Can you walk us through an arrest as it's present, and if we have to transport an arrested person to another jail facility, what the difference would be, and
Well,
what you expect is time loss?
It's, you know, I mean, that's the predominant thing is time loss. You know, obviously, the further you have to transport somebody away, it takes the time for the officer to get back into the community and get back on duty. So, you know, depending on where you go, the further away you go, the more time you lose.
But arrest currently, an officer who makes that arrest solely puts him in his car, brings him into the station,
Yes.
and we have video arraignment.
We have video arraignment for certain things. Other things, the judges require the person to be be there in person. And those are only initial arrests, you know. People that get arrested, it's not the only time they come back through our doors. If you get arrested and you get arraigned on a felony offense, you're gonna have a preliminary exam. So anywhere from a week to 2 weeks later, the county jail is gonna bring you back. Those people have to go in front of the judge, because at that point they have an attorney, you know, even if it's a pool attorney from the defense pool assigned to them, so they can't be put on video anymore. So if you don't have anywhere to maintain those individuals, you spend a lot of time driving back and forth to wherever that facility is where you are going to keep them.
And when you transport to another detention, a jail, and we go out of the city, we're required to take 2 officers to transport?
Well, the contract used to say that, but when the contract said that, we had a lot of police officers. So, you know, we tend to make do with what we have. So I would say that the majority of officers are probably doing single transport. And that's, you know, there's nothing wrong with necessarily doing it that way. I mean, obviously, it's safer if you have 2 individuals, but there's nothing wrong with singular transport.
Do any of the other communities, if you wanted to transport an officer there because we were filled, would they require that we bring them in with 2 officers?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any other questions by council?
I'm just curious to follow up on what you were saying. How long does that process take, Chief? I mean, if you make an arrest and you bring the, you know, let's say it's a shoplifter up on the hill and you bring him down, I mean, how much time is that officer off the road before he can actually leave that gentleman or lady in the jail and go back out and start patrolling again?
Well, the booking process itself is probably going to take, depending on the officer, anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes, depending on what the person's there for. You know, and I'm just talking about a normal arrest where you bring them in, they're non-combative. It's something similar, you know, simple like a retail fraud. Obviously, the more complex the crime becomes, the more charges that need to be added during the booking process, the longer it's going to take. You know, so if you're, it's really about drive time. The process is similar no matter where you do it, and the amount of time spent is going to be the same. It's the to and from is really where you lose where you're going to lose the hours.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing. Chief, would you look into a matter for me? I ran this through the chain of command, but naturally I didn't get a response. So there's a old vacant pharmacy at Champaign and Vine that appears to have some building activity ongoing at nighttime. I didn't see any permits posted. And just last summer, we had the same thing going on in that same strip mall, and I sent multiple letters or emails to the city hall here without response until I finally sent photographs to prove it, I guess. Just look into that. I don't know if anything's going on or not, but it seems to me somebody should respond somewhere along the line. I didn't send it to you. I sent it through the chain of command, if you get my meaning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just one thing for clarification, because it seems like almost every building at that corner was a pharmacy for a
No,
couple months.
it's the one on near Vine on the other end. It used to be Heritage Pharmacy.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask, the old Heritage Pharmacy.
across the street from the Dairy Mart.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
No?
Councilman
Chief,
Sisko.
sorry.
I get a stool?
But as you're talking about transporting prisoners, so when you transport somebody to Wayne County, what kind of crime would they have committed for you to take them out of our jail, not bond them out at our jail, but take them to Wayne County?
Well, Wayne County picks up,
Wayne County picks up.
yes. So no matter what the type of crime is, let's say you're arrested for domestic violence, and the judge, you see the judge, and the judge says, you know, you need to post $500 bond, and you can't post the $500. We would call the Wayne County Jail, and they would pick you up and take you down to the jail. I don't know if that necessarily answered your question.
So but when they come back our way,
They bring them back.
they bring them back
Yeah.
also?
I believe, like the mayor was talking about, if we were gonna use another police
Right.
agency nearby for us to take our initial arrest to.
Then, let me just follow up, because if we bring somebody in and there's a warrant for their arrest and detention out on the wires, and it happens to be Detroit, they do not come, do they?
A lot of times they don't, depends on what the warrant's for. You
So
know,
and then
it's no different from any police department. Our police department does the same thing. If you have a seatbelt violation warrant and, you know, we get a call from Grand Blanc, we're not gonna send an officer out there to pick somebody up on that. Where we're looking for an individual for a significant assault, and he may have fled to New York, and if I find out he's in New York and I have to send people to New York to go get him, then we're gonna go get him in New York. But that, you know, it all depends on the severity of the crime.
Do we call when we're not coming to pick up on one of our warrants?
They call
Tell them
us.
we're not coming?
They call us and they ask, you know, they'll say, one of my officers has John Doe, and he has a $50 seatbelt warrant from Allen Park. Do you want to come get him? And the officer on the desk will make the decision if he wants to dedicate the resources, have the officer out of the city for that period of time to pick somebody up on a $50 warrant.
I want to thank both the chiefs for your
I'm not going to leave
presentations.
until I make sure we're done, because I stepped away 3 times now.
Okay. Item 2 on the presentations, I see Mr. Itkiss over there, if he wants to come forward at this time, and, oh, Ms. Lesel is also over there, so.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have been asked to come up here and discuss the BOV that we put together for the pricing of the 11 acres on which we are currently located. And the packages that you see right now that we just passed out, we were also asked to compare the deal that just took place next door with the 2 hotels. And so we gave you the information to show the differences between how the lands differ from each other. There's an email that we received from the city administrator. So there's 3 questions on here. We're going to go through each one. The first question is what was our approach in developing the BOV and the pricing, and how do we arrive at our pricing? There were various aspects that we used, various resources. One was the comps, the comparable properties that sold that are similar in size to the property that we have here. We broke it down between 1 to 5 acres that have the frontage on the main roads, and 1 to 5 acres that are typically in the back that do not have any main road frontage. And in the BOV, actually, you should have this as well. There's the valuation summary page. It'll show you the different prices that we have come up with. So in using the comps as well as using what is going on in the current marketplace. We are on the upward swing, not heavily upward, but it is getting, I believe the prices have gone up. So in looking at the comps are, the challenge with the comps is that they are for the previous deals, the previous transactions that have taken place, the previous sales. Well, there's a lag in between what has happened and what's going on in the current market. Well, the current market, the comps for today are going to be in 6 to 18 months from now. So we have to evaluate both the comps as well as what's going on in the marketplace today. And given that, this valuation summary page that gives you the different prices show you exactly what we think the 1 to 5 acres will cost that front Southfield Road, the 1 to 5 acres in the back of the property. And if you saw the entire 11-acre parcel, here is your price for the entire parcel, given the way the parcel is situated, the fact that it's narrow and long. The next question was, would we modify our prices given the sale next door? And the answer is really no. If you take a look at what we have suggested, this price goes right along with what we have suggested the prices to be for the $277,500 per acre that was sold next door. It was for 6 acres. Well, if you take a look at our pricing for 1 to 5 acres, it's in line with what they sold it for. We have an offer for the 11 acres, and I think this is where everything's came. The reason why you're asking us these questions is because you want to make sure that the offer is within the pricing that we discussed. And if you could take a look at that page, you'll see what we were suggesting is at the max of $150,000 an acre for the 11 acres. We currently have an offer of roughly $182,000 an acre. So it's above what we expected the entire 11 acres to be sold for. Are there any questions at this time?
Now, these prices that you're putting here, these are what you're suggesting we ask.
These are the asking prices, not
This is
the
not what
the
you
strike
expected to
prices.
sell
Right.
for, correct.
These are the asking prices, and the reason why we went for the front, specifically for the front, we did come up with aggressive pricing, but that's because we can't possibly understand where the market is. We just know that it's going upward. We don't know where it is, so we make sure to come up with aggressive enough pricing where we get the highest price possible, and the city does benefit the most.
Well, it just seems interesting. We were also handed this document, which is probably from one of your other partners, that's the listing for the property next door, and they have the retail land at, and I know it's kind of hard because you don't see it, but the green is the
Yeah.
retail land, I'm
Yep.
sure, at $600,000 an acre for 0 to 5, 5+ acres at $325,000, $175,000 an acre for the retail office, which is again the larger part here, and then as low as $65,000 for the back. But the 5+ acres listing price at $325,000, which I think, I mean, you're saying, you know, pretty close to that. I mean, the 277.5
This is your 20.
seems
this is
pretty
roughly
close. I
about
mean, if you're
20%,
asking
right.
325 and you end up at 277.5,
That's
probably pretty
within the
decent.
market, exactly, within the ballpark.
I have a question on your
Councilman Cisco.
0 to 5 acres comparables in your booklet there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a property located on North Line Road in Southgate for 1.15 acres. Sale price is $500,000. Can you identify what that property is?
I don't know specifically what this property is about, but there were some national companies that have purchased this, such as McDonald's, such as Tim Hortons, so they are the stronger payers. That's normal.
Would this reflect more like a corner lot of
This
sorts?
would reflect right main on the road with a corner lot.
Main
Exactly,
Allen
yeah,
Road right off of
exactly right.
75?
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Go ahead,
Councilman DiGiulio.
please.
277.5 you sold over there for per acre, correct?
Correct.
Now, is that Southfield frontage?
It's both. Part of it is.
How much is Southfield
Well,
frontage?
here, if you open up this you'll take a look that in here,
But the audience, the people at home don't know it either, though. So, I mean, just tell me, how much property's on
you're
Southfield?
roughly talking about 360 feet of
360 feet of
feet of
Southfield?
parcel B, but then you also have parcel A, which, and this one fronts Enterprise. So you had
So how much is on Southfield?
about 360 acres, 360 feet.
360 feet?
Right.
And how deep does it go? So that'd be like an acre and a half across the front. If it was 200 feet deep, it'd be...
It's actually it's about three, well, it's an odd piece because you can see that it's not exactly square, it's triangular.
Right,
in
but
a
it'd be
sense.
360 feet though across the front.
Across the frontage for Southfield, and then he's
You know,
got,
that'd be a little over an acre and a half across the front, correct? I mean, 210
Roughly,
feet's an
roughly.
acre, correct?
roughly, yeah,
So 210 feet by 210 feet's an acre if you square it off.
approximately.
So we've got 360 feet on Southfield, and then how deep does it go?
No, this one goes about 500 feet.
500 feet deep? So that's like, what, 5 acres or what, 4 acres?
Well, together between the two, parcel A and parcel B, 6 acres.
6 acres?
Right.
Okay,
6.085.
all right. Thank you.
My question, sir, ma'am, has to do with the, you say, we won't know until we have these comps down the road. I guess my fundamental question is, in your experience, raw land is seemingly less valuable than something that's got some development that shows the potential promise for the future. So in other words, once these hotels are built, which presumably they will be in the next year or so, will that increase the value of the remaining parcel that we want to sell?
It depends on the use. Hotel users, they may bring in some quick service restaurants, but overall, it does depend on the use. At times, let's say if you put a Walmart over here, or you put up a big box retailer that draws in a lot of different smaller tenants, then yes, that's very true. But a hotel as a use, it brings in some tenants, it brings in some users, but it's not a huge draw for just gives a very strong, I guess, draw for the development. It's decent, but it's not as a big box retailer.
So this creates foot traffic, right?
It doesn't create that much foot traffic. It's transit. People come in from the airport, they go in there, that's why there's always restaurants near hotels, because they go to the hotel, they eat, the next morning they leave, or they stay for 2 days and they leave.
It just seems to me that, at least in theory, obviously, the sooner it gets sold, the sooner we're through with it, the sooner you get your commission or whatever. But I'd hate to miss the opportunity to maximize our benefit. I don't see any urgency. We're going to rent this place next door anyway. So what if we do it for 12 months or 24 months? It doesn't much matter to me. And I know everybody's in a hurry to get this building built, maybe everybody but me. I'd rather see us maximize, and I just, in my mind, it seems to me, if they saw something happening, they saw a lot of people showing up, they saw people say, boy, I wish I had that little couple acres next to it or something like that, and maybe we get the 400,000 for 2 acres or 3 acres and build behind it or something like that, and we'd be ahead of the game. That's my only concern. We've already screwed up one real estate deal badly in this city, and we don't want to do it again. And, I'm sure there are those out there that feel like we didn't get enough for the 104 acres. I don't know if we did or didn't. I'm not an expert. But I'll say one thing. I would, in my mind, I think I'd bank on the fact that it would probably be worth more if some development was occurring, because people say it's no longer an eyesore. There's actually something happening. People are gravitating to that area. And I think there's more potential, in my mind at least. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in the same package right here, there's a listing agreement that says that once we are hired, we will bring we'll bring the property to the market, and we will pursue everybody pretty much.
Great. Any other council questions? I guess I've got, oh,
Well, you can go ahead.
I've got two. First, I went on your webpage and looked at the Hobbs and Black drawings. And your 104 acres that you have listed there is 115, just so you know.
115.
Yeah, our city hall is an outlot on that Hobbs and Black presentation.
There were various drawings that we went through showing the potential to various
Well,
users.
I appreciated your
Yeah.
marketing that for us already.
Well, Hobbs and Black actually had that drawing before we even came along because they did some work for the previous people.
Okay, and I guess the other issue about, you know, retaining you to market the property for us is, we have an offer, well, we have two problems. And we'll have the attorney talk about the second one maybe, but you have an offer into us already for CBRE. And my issue is, I can't imagine that if we hired you and then we made the deal there, that we would pay CBRE on both ends.
You're not paying on both ends.
Well, the one presently says that if we make the deal with Time Equities, we pay CBRE.
Well, you're paying the exact same amount whether you sign this with us or not. It's the same pot.
That was my question.
It's the same thing. You're not
You
paying
know,
any more.
I mean, but all of a sudden you bring us, you know, Joe Dokes, it's not CBRE, then you have that commission from that sale. But what I'm saying is, you're our listed broker and the deal goes through with Time Equities. I mean, I can't imagine that we would pay CBRE twice.
You wouldn't.
Okay.
That's this. We have brought you the offer. Now, if you hire us, we're the same party to the. Parties don't change, and the commission doesn't change either. You're not paying double the commission. That doesn't change.
I mean, we just, you know, we're trying to talk with you, and then we were talking with, we had an offer from Apostolopolis, and that was another broker, and I think actually, was that the president of Robert Mahalik?
That's just a broker.
Oh. Well, if there are no other questions, then, oh,
I just want to make a couple comments.
all right.
Sure.
Well, one is, you know, we just have this listing agreement, so we're not going to take action on it tonight. We haven't even read it. The other is we need to tie up some loose ends with Mr. Bogie. So we need to take care of that before we do anything. And then I also wanted to add, you know, if you were hired, could you facilitate a discussion? You know, we're not real estate developers here, and people have different ideas. You know, there's some ideas putting a city hall here, and then Bob raised the issue possibly doing some type of land swap. Could you assist us in making a, you know, facilitate us in the decision-making process?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Because as we were before, we are your consultants, and we work with you to help you make the best decisions. So as CBRE, we represent you, but there are 48 brokers in CBRE. So Arthur and I would specifically represent you. And yes, one of the things we've talked to Ms. Folks and Ms. Parker about is how to look at this. Sometimes you want to look at it whether you want to build a city hall on site, whether you don't, whether you want to sell it as an entire piece. And one of the things we encourage Ms. Folks to do is to bring it to the market, because then we would be able to find out what the market will bring, just as it did next door, and then help you make the best decision you can with the offers that are presented.
So you would let them, I guess what you're saying, you would let the market drive it?
That's what we discussed about, is what we took the 11 acres and we said it's potentially you can have 3 different parties to ownership: the front, the back, the middle. Well, we also have in mind the fact that the city wants to build its city hall on it. Well, what we did, that's how you have this offer from us now, is we brought in a developer who can actually buy the entire property as well as work with you in creating the city hall, in building it for you. So we can definitely assist in making sure that the city is getting what the city is looking for from this property. Not only a sale, and that's what we discussed, is that it's not only a sale, it's also the terms and the conditions under which you will sell the property. That will include that if you want to stay here and do a city hall, somebody who's going to build it for you, that's the buyer, and that's the buyer we're going to be pursuing.
Let me just, Mayor, if I could just
Yeah.
clarify
Mayor Pro Tem.
a couple things. I know, and I apologize. I know we had a work session last Tuesday, and I know that you and Lisa Arthur weren't there. When we talked about the time equities offer, it was appealing to me in the sense that the gentleman from Time Equities basically said that we did not have to be locked into this 11-acre parcel. And one of the complaints that we've had for years with this city hall is the ingress and egress out of the, well, really the egress out of the facility, because you have to jump over 4 lanes of traffic to head back into town. So a lot of our older residents, you know, head up to Outer Drive and have to come back and what have you. So I had said that I would be really interested in the possibility of locating City Hall over in the cheap acreage, as I'm gonna call it, back behind like where Ford is, or behind the 160 building, which they have listed at about $65,000 an acre. It would provide us, you know, the Enterprise Drive is a much easier entrance and exit. Not only that, if we had emergency vehicles that would have to leave the police station or whatever, they wouldn't be caught up in traffic coming from the back of the property, i.e. if there was a hotel up front here, you'd have to navigate through that. So that's what the attorney was talking about, that I had stated that I'd like to see. But let me be clear, at no point did the word land swap ever come out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob.
Right.
I didn't mean to
And I don't mean
mischaracterize that, sorry.
But I'm looking at the possibility of maybe selling this 11 acres for the money that we talked about, you know, in the $2 million range. And I know that there's some remediation of soil issues and all that kind of stuff. But I would be in favor of selling this and purchasing, like at the $65,000 an acre, whatever we would need over there. Or it could be, I mean, if you want to use the term land swap, they could drop their offer by whatever that would be. But I would not want to, I think some of that property over there, the acreage that I'm talking about, I don't think we have anything on this site here that would be that inexpensive. Even the back part, like Arthur and I've talked about, you know, the ability to see it off of 94. The cheapest parcel on this 11 acres is worth much more than those over there off Enterprise Drive towards the back. So I wouldn't want to swap anything. But just so you know a little bit about the discussion that we had. You know, I know that they've already petitioned to move the light, which would make it easy to get in and out too. So there's a lot of different things that are very advantageous in my mind with us moving forward with Time Equities, if we could come up with some sort of a deal that was amicable to both. So since you two weren't there, I just wanted you to know what the discussion was.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just, yeah, when I said land swap, I didn't mean money would not be part of that, but again, the idea is having, assist us in the decision-making process, assist this board, you know, the pros and cons, why this makes sense, why it may or may not be good to sell this whole lot, you know, maybe there's more. I think that would help us in the decision-making process.
Well, as you know, with the 104 acres, when we did finally sell it, we had 5 buyers on there, and we did the exact same thing. We assisted the emergency manager as well as the state come up with a decision of who will be the best buyer, not only as far as money. The highest price was great, but also future for the city of the development, so that the city can be proud of it. And that's how we got lucky. We got the best buyer and the highest price.
You know, Mr. Chairman, since that little catchphrase, land swap, arose tonight, I wonder if Mrs. Folks would advise if she's aware of any other such land swap dealings, because the social media seems to contain suggestions that you've been dealing with yet another realtor. I'm unaware of this because certainly we don't get any information, but is there anybody else we need to know about so that we don't get surprised? Are you dealing with anybody else? Are there any plans to swap a piece of this land for some other land to build a city hall?
Well, let me answer before that, just because maybe it answers the question. The land swap's my idea, Councilman. If we swap, and let's assume we swap at their 65,000 an acre.
I'm not talking about here, I'm talking about another location.
Well, I'm talking about their location next door and swapping our land. But the advantage when you swap land with people who have to pay taxes on the profits they make on their land is if they swap to a higher priced land and have to pay us cash for the difference, they're not going to be paying any any taxes on the property that they sell us. And that's the advantage. I want to say it's section 1031, but I haven't done one in such a long time. Am I right? Is it section 1031?
1031.
Yeah.
I
And that-
appreciate your comment. I'd like to hear Mrs. Folks
Well,
answer the
let me-
question.
I'm answering your question because you asked about a land swap, and
I was
the
asking
question
Mrs.
came up,
Folks.
and I'm the one that brought it up. I mean, if she's,
Oh, she may have brought it up also.
Never have I brought it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to be on the record
Yeah,
of
no,
expressing my concern, that's all.
but,
no.
yeah, the Mayor for Tem, and that's the reason for it, because it gives them, a tax advantage. It doesn't make any difference to us, and that may give us bargaining chip with
Makes
them.
perfect sense. I think that goes to what the attorney was saying. I mean, it, again, lends credence to having professionals deal with it instead of a guy that doesn't know anything about 1031 from 1035.
10-4?
Well, thank you both for coming out, and just have some patience with us.
Thank you.
We've got to get one item definitely solved.
Thank you very much.
Any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to organizational business, Ms. Folks.
Yes.
Before we start, Mayor, I'd like to make a statement.
Yes.
As I just want to remind everybody that on January 27th, this council brought a resolution to terminate the employment and suspend with pay Karen Folks, our city administrator. It was a 7-0 vote. I personally do not want to sit here and act hypocritical as we go through this process and we act like this didn't happen. There is a thing called civil disobedience that has been practiced for years in this country that is well respected by many people. So what I want to say now, I want to practice some civil disobedience right now. And as this organizational business starts, I will leave my chair and leave this room. I object to our city administrator being on this panel. I do not object to her being in the room, though. I object to her being on this panel. I will get up and leave, and I will come back as we go through the public comments and consent agenda. But I don't know how else to express my displeasure at what's going on.
Before you leave, may I ask, can someone else read this, like the mayor? Or can we just have a motion to accept and file?
Yeah, you can make a motion to accept it as, it doesn't have to be written. You can make a motion to accept it and file it.
Certainly, if that's the pleasure of the council, anyone can bring that motion up and take it just as written without explanation.
That'll be my motion.
I'll support that.
Moved by Councilwoman Gawarecki and seconded by Councilman Hayes that the motion to accept and file the updates, reports, document, and submissions be done. And any other discussion?
Well, I guess I'm not going anywhere at this point.
Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I do, for audience clarification and for the people at home, want to state, though, the council acted on the 27th. On the 28th, we received a letter from the state and said that our action was a nullity under Act 436 and the orders instituted by the emergency manager. And we are working very diligently to get a modification of the state's position on that, but they haven't done so as of the beginning of this meeting. So technically, our action has no way for us to enforce it because of the state's action. So we'll go forward with that. We're going to go to the public comment section. With that, I'd like to read the rules of decorum before citizens speak. Individual may only speak on an issue after the individual has been recognized by the chairperson. Comments from the floor shall be made at the podium, at the front of the council table, or at such other area as designated by chairperson. Prior to an individual speaking from the floor, the individual shall identify themselves and state their address for the record. For our purposes, the street without the number is fine. All comments shall be directed only to the chairperson. Speakers are not to address other members of the council or members of the audience. Each member of the public may speak for up to 4 minutes. All written statements should be given to the city clerk prior to the meeting so that copies may be made available to members of the public body. No individual shall be allowed to make any defamatory attack or invasion of another individual's personal life. There shall be no questions, comments, discussions, or attacks regarding anybody's personal life. The chairperson shall immediately rule out of order any person who begins to bring up such issues. If the chairperson does not, any member of the council may bring a point of order and request a vote that the offending party be ruled out of order. If the person is ruled out of order by such a motion, they must cease that discussion. If it goes and the vote does not rule the offending party out of order and the person continues to speak, then at such time as the person has finished their remarks, the chairperson shall recognize the person who has been spoken about and given them equal time to reply. For purposes of these rules as they relate to elected officials or city officials, the term personal life shall refer to anything other than that which is said or done in the person's official capacity as an elected official or in the person's official city capacity. Members of the public body may question the speakers, but members of the public body are not obligated to answer any questions or make any statements on the issue raised or discussed by the speaker. Issues may be referred to an appropriate body, department, or individual for investigation and review. No person or group shall be allowed to disrupt the meeting or proceedings. Any individual who fails to comply with these rules after having first been warned by the chairperson to cease such actions shall be warned by the chairperson to leave and/or be ejected from the meeting. Thank you. And with that, citizens come forward, please.
Good evening. The name is Malcolm Beaton, a resident of Allen Park for 51 years. Where overtime was discussed about the police and the fire department, let's be realistic. It's not Ford Motor Company running the production line that is going to stop at 4 o'clock. It's not Blue Cross Blue Shield who's going to say to their typist, time to go home. In Allen Park, we have 3 expressways running through our town. Heaven forbid there be 150 car pile up. Our police and our fire department are out there risking their lives. You're in the bottom of that pile up. Their time is up. Do you want them to go home and wait for the next shift if you're in the bottom of that pile underneath the freight truck? I don't think so. So it's impossible to determine how much overtime the police and the fire department are going to have to put up with for an entire year. I want to lay that to rest. But I commend you, Councilman Cisco. When you made that proposal of firing this lady, it wasn't even 24 hours later. State Treasurer, in the dark of night, was contacted because when this woman showed up, apparently, as I'm finding out, you were told that the vote of this mayor and council meant absolutely nothing. So where is our city charter? This is still America. This is not Cuba. This is not China. The way you people vote, and I don't mean this to be innuendoous to nobody, you have no voice. So why meet like you do? And this woman continues to sit there making $100,000 a year plus benefits. Mayor, you as the chairman of this meeting, the way this council is set up, you are nothing more than a buffer to her. Because if you did what you should be doing, being the city charter is gone and the state is ruled against the city, take that gavel, give it over to this woman, and let the public see how sophomoric that she is where municipal government is concerned. And you will not be her buffer. Now, this woman has got to answer to the public. She would have to answer to somebody like me that asked some profound questions. And like some of the people behind me. As long as you leave her there, Mr. Mayor, she's satisfied. Because at the end of the week, the treasurer is going to make up her check and give it to her. How many times have we heard her tonight speak on anything? Nothing. She's really, what she's doing is hiding behind you as the chairman of this meeting. Imagine if you took a vote here tonight to say, give that gavel over to that woman. Expose her. Don't protect her. Until you do that, you're going to continue to meet up here. And I say this in all honesty, you're nothing more than an empty suit occupying a chair. Thank you.
Raymond Augustin, citizen of Allen Park. Good evening. A number of things. I want to thank the police chief and the fire chief for a very well done presentation. I'd like to see that happen more often, at a minimum of 6 months. Same thing with all their department heads. I've been asking that for quite some time. We had it before. I'd like to see it put back on our agenda. Thank you for a job well done. And thank you for your officers and all our police and our firemen. A couple of things. I'm going to ask Ms. Folks today to please resign. And the reason I'm going to ask you to resign is very simple, Mayor, is because we got nothing, not a penny, not a dime, not a dollar from the state. I'd like to see a detailed description exactly what the application was. I'd like to see exactly what we went for. I'd like to know who put it in. Why did we not get any money? Now we are going to ask, and you're going to ask, and all you are going to ask us citizens to do a couple things. You're going to ask us to pass another millage, call it what it is, you can call it anything, to go ahead and pay for replacing and upgrade city copiers with Toshiba copiers. You're going to also ask for an upgrade of fire station software. You're also going to go ahead and you're going to ask to go ahead and get money to go ahead and build a new city hall or do whatever. You're going to also be asking for a number of upgrades for when we move over there. New IT, new everything. That's exactly the kind of money that all the cities received. Exactly. You're going to be asking for us to go ahead and pay for upgrades for our lighting. Exactly the same type of money that they received. I'd like to see a detailed description of what we went for. And I'd really like to see an investigation why we didn't receive anything. I'd like to go ahead and have Ms. Folks, somebody in city council to give us citizens her credentials. List her credentials so we know exactly what her credentials are. It is in an order by Ms. Parker. Okay? I'd like to know how long our SAFER grant's when it's going to run out. When it runs out, then we're going to have to ask for more money or another SAFER grant. I think we need to know. I'd like to ask City Council right now, were any of you, or through the chair, Mr. Mayor, including yourself, were any of you, did you know that a meeting was going on with Melvindale about either sharing jail services and building inspector services? Were you involved with that? Were you?
I'll answer no.
Thank you.
I'll answer no.
Were you?
No.
This is why I'm asking Ms. Folks to please resign. Mr., and I'm going to ask our citizen, Mr. Beaton. Mr. Beaton, Malcolm, if that would happen, and you gave this individual the gavel, we'll get the exact same thing from her that we've been receiving. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Ray, just to your point, and I don't know if you were going to answer or not, but to your point about the money, I believe the mayor has asked State Senator Virgil Smith to investigate that matter and to find out why we were not awarded any of the money. And I believe that, I don't want to speak for you, but I just wanted to.
I actually asked for that from Mr. Smith.
Was that you,
from Senator
I'm
Smith.
sorry.
I asked him specifically to find out why we received no money.
So hopefully we're going to find that out.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brian Debo, Pleasant. I'd like to get a clarification on the provision for the special millage. And before I ask the question, I want to premise this by saying, I'm not saying what our proper reserve should be. I'm not saying whether or not the millage is good or bad. What I'm saying is my concern is how we went about getting the millage. My question is, the original provision was 10% of the expenses, and Mayor, it's 10% of the reserves is the ending balance, and you had made a comment at the end of last meeting that my information was wrong. But on the 5-year budget that's forecasted, the bottom line shows the percentage, and that's the percentage that I'm referring to. Each one exceeds 10%. It goes from 22% to 34%, 37%, et cetera, for each one of those years. That's what the comparison is. It's the reserves against the expenses. Now, the new provision had 10 to 15% plus 1 to 2 times the DUP ratio. My question through the chair to Ms. Folks is, what is that new number for each one of those years? How is that factored in the calculation for your proposed budget for the next 5 years? Do you know what that is? Is it factored in? Her non-response tells me she put together a 5-year forecast for a budget, and yet the provision, the new rules for the provision isn't calculated inside this. She doesn't even know what those rules are, apparently, or she isn't going to communicate that to us. So how can you put together a budget without even knowing what the provision is? The taxpayers were sold on the idea of a 10% rollback. You exceed 10% of your expenses compared to the ongoing ending fund balance, and we would get a refund. And yet, a budget was amended in May, 9 months later, and accepted, and at that time the rule was still 10%. I mean, we obviously overstated that revenue by $4.6 million. And yet, last week, or last meeting, Mr. Lafler, the bond lawyer or whatever, he talked about due diligence, he talked about full disclosure, and he referred to those numbers. And those numbers were wrong. They were dead wrong. It was a farce. Those numbers that were submitted to the state, accepted to the state, is not acceptable. And we have a bond offering. Do those people realize that? And the new rules, the new provision, what is it? We don't even know when we put together a forecast for 5 years? Something is seriously wrong. And how are we looking to borrow more money when we're supposed to have a reserve? The reserve for 2015, 2016, as stated, is $7 million. That's the reserve, is $7 million. I don't understand how these numbers are working right now. I do know, I'm serious about this. You better take a look at the bond offering and what numbers was actually used for the bond offering to show the stability of Allen Park. Please take a look at it. I can send you an email with the backup information with page numbers. I sent that to the financial department in Lansing to document what's going on here. And hopefully you guys really take a look at it. Don't sit there and just brush me off saying that I don't know what I'm doing. Take a look at those numbers. I can send you the email and it references each document, each page number for you to take a look at. And this is serious. And by the way, the EM, when she made her change, she referenced the same agency that in 2012 said that the proper budget was 10 to 15%. And even when she came with the millage, she said 10%. She lowballed it at that point in time. Please take a look at the numbers. Thank you.
Charles Blend, Champaign. First off, wonderful sunny day we're having today. Just no snow. Great job. Woo! And next, great job to the chiefs on a wonderful presentation and everything you guys do in your departments. Every day I see going down the roads and everything. Thank you. Next, to the city council as a whole. When speaking, please speak into the mic. Please do not lean back because some people out watching cannot hear this. So please, I know I turned the volume up all the way, but I know it's a cable situation, but even out here, sometimes we can't hear you exact details of everything in numbers, and especially if you mumble too, like me sometimes. Next, anything happening, I'm not really sure about the Stotzenberg next door, is the school still there or if it's just an empty building? I'm not sure why we're still advertising sign. Just wondering that situation. I want to remind residents to make sure you shovel all around their fire hydrants, even if it's down their block. Just help your neighbor out, especially if there's an elderly that lives in front of a hydrant. Shovel it so it's a safety situation, because each second can help save a house as well. Next, I want to say great job to the citizens and businesses and the departments all coming together, supporting the Bowman family. I know I don't know them personally, but from what I've seen from the ribbons, from the hockey game, for everything they've done, it's just wonderful what a city can do for one family. It's just wonderful. Next, I want to say that it's great to see in the newspaper that the running back for the Lions, George Bell, gave a $10,000 grant to for like sports equipment and stuff like that. He went to the, I know it wasn't, I don't think personally him, but a situation happened at the middle school for the sports of Allen Park itself. I'm glad to see more and more empty buildings being filled. Like I see gas stations being worked on, which is wonderful, seeing improvements, and wonderful job to the DDA and the road department on e-course. Just an idea or suggestion for in the future maybe, that I know back in the day I used to watch TV shows that had like kids doing mayor for a day or for government class. Maybe they can do something like mayor for a day here or city administrator for a day, so they know exactly what you guys do each day. And then lastly, I want to say keep up doing great job to this council, and citizens keep coming up here and speaking. Voice your opinions and your views, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Valentine's Day this Saturday. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Al Wojcinski, Vine Avenue. Yes, it does help if you speak into the mics, everybody. Thank you. I want to thank Chief Wilkowitz and Chief LaFawn for their dissertation tonight. I didn't realize that they were doing 9 runs a day, and that new unit they got, those horns will, well, they'll make you move. Let's put it that way. Now, tonight, you were talking about, or CBRE was here. What about the Time Equity and the Boji Group? Are they still involved?
Time Equities is still involved. we're trying to figure out, Mr. Boji here a couple of weeks ago withdrew his offer, but there's some legal question of whether that's a valid withdrawal, and they're being asked by the company to give us a written response.
Because regarding Boji, I understand, or I heard that he's gone to the state, that he was chosen, and he wants still to be chosen to develop this acreage. If he withdrew his offer and it's not on paper, he's still involved. And can anybody, Mr. Cisco, Mr. Keenan, or you, the mayor, tell us what happened in Lansing? Or is that you can't talk about it?
Well, myself and Mayor Pro Tem Keenan and Councilman Cisco did go up to Lansing last Thursday, and we met with the deputy treasurer and the people who are responsible in a number of ways for fiscal responsibility of municipalities. We discussed the fact that we felt that the council was being shut out of its responsibilities and charter duties, and that we had to have changes made, and that we had acted with a request that the state change our city administrator, and the council members all submitted reasons for the action that was taken to remove the administrator, and at the conclusion, they indicated that they were going to come down and meet with department heads, which they've done today. I don't know if they've completed all the department heads, but they're coming down to talk with them. They should be complete by tomorrow. And then we're supposed to have a plan for any changes that the state is going to make in orders and in the job of Ms. Folks, and that will be communicated to the council as soon as it is communicated to me, because I'm supposed to be the point man to receive their decision, and hopefully that will come, and I will report to the council, and I'm also supposed to report to the governor's office. So the governor, as you know, is in the hospital. So,
right.
But there's somebody there that's been appointed to get the information.
Okay. And through the chair to Mr. Cisco, thank you for shortening our meeting. I mean that. And if, through the chair to Ms. Folks, if you wrote the grant application, what city did you write it for? I mean, there was a list of items that you could request money for. I'd like, and so would a lot of the citizens, we would like to see that application for what it was. I asked you 2 weeks ago about that. Nothing. The same with the salary, starting salary of a firefighter, police officer, and the paramedics. Other than that, we have a work session, you're saying, for Tuesday regarding the 2 items here regarding Melvindale.
Right.
Okay, and like Charles said, happy Valentine's Day, everybody, and have fun.
Good evening. Have any of you heard of the Officers' Compensation Commission? There's a ordinance on the books for that, and basically that commission sets the pay for all of you people and the treasurer and the city clerk. Let me finish, because my time is limited.
You'll identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Andrea Hammond, resident of Allen Park. This commission only meets for 15 days a year, and like I said, they're to set the pay for the elected officials of the city of Allen Park. I went through all of Joyce Parker's orders, and I could find nothing that mentions this commission that she would have disbanded it. So I would like somebody to look it up and see if the commission is still a viable commission. And the reason I'm saying that is because in the 5-year budget, there shows 2% wage increases for every department head. And I'm sorry, Maureen and Michael, You're a department head, but you're also an elected official, and you should fall under this commission. The other item I have, there's a lot of things on the agenda. In the presentation from CBRE, I don't know if you're aware of this. I used to work for the phone company, and there used to be a trunk route that went underneath the parking lot under I-94 and ended up on the other side of the freeway and went over to the Logan Central office. It was a fiber optic cable. I don't know if it's still there. If it is, it could interfere with anybody's plans to do something in the parking lot. On here it says payroll report. Why don't we show the payroll report on the city website? City of Pontiac does this, lists every employee and what they make every week. The budget to actual report, why not post that on the city website? Eliminate a lot of questions from the residents, or it could be informative to the residents. It says here that you're going to vote on fees waived for Cabrini. Well, I'm sorry, I don't approve of that. We're still under a financial emergency as long as there's the receivership board. Cabrini should pay the fee just like everybody else. You've got a resolution to upgrade the fire station software and city copiers. Do you know what fund that money's going to come out of? What account? Is it in the budget? Or is it going to be something that we amend the budget down the road because you guys voted for something? Also on here, it says CGAP, I'm sorry. What does that mean? I mean, we use acronyms, and really nobody knows what they mean. Do any of you people know what that means? It also says in here about the part of that, Melvindale feasibility study for building inspection services. I would ask that you look to Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park's EM just signed a 5-year agreement with Safe Built to do their building inspections, to straighten up their building department. They've had major problems. They signed a 5-year agreement for $350,000. And from the last budget I looked at, that's a budget for 1 year for the building department in Allen Park. Also, and I'm rushing, I take it that everybody sitting up here is a city employee as of today, correct? Everybody. Whether you're an elected official or not, you're still a city employee. And you are responsible to what's in the employee handbook. I'm sorry, I'll send you an email about that one. Thank you.
Can I just answer her on the CGAP?
Councilwoman Gavariki?
It's a competitive grant assistance program.
And Mayor, if I could, just to follow up. Yep. The board that you referenced, the compensation board, I attended their last meeting. Myself and resident Ed Kleinau were the only two in the audience. And I don't know what they meet. It's a call of the chair. And my understanding is they only meet once every odd years. Yeah, on the odd years. And they did meet the October prior to us being elected, and that was when everybody up here's compensation was cut by 10% by that board, including the treasurer and the clerk. So just so to be clear about that.
Wouldn't they then meet again because you guys are going out of office to set the pay for the next
Sure.
elected official?
Okay.
That's correct.
Your time, please.
We didn't put that dollar amount in our budgets for increases. I'm not sure where that came from.
I wish it was that easy.
Sorry. That is determined by them, though. They make that determination of what we're going to get paid. So I don't know why that's in our budget. We weren't in control of any payroll or benefits included in our budgets. I'm guessing it came from Human Resources.
I don't know if a student was going to come up here and ask a question, so I thought I'd better run up here fast. Right, Bob?
Please just introduce yourself.
Sure.
Please
Kevin
move
Rourke,
forward.
City of Allen Park. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate, I know as mentioned earlier, with the police and fire and Allen Park High's hockey team for that. It was an excellent community event, the hockey game at the Civic Arena. And the Bowman family, very appreciative of everything that went on. And I think what was important about that is, I was kind of joking with a couple of the firemen out there when I was coming in looking at the new rig, because when I sat up there, I challenged some things now and then with them, and we respected each other and opinions. But the police and fire don't always get the accolades of what they do in the community. It's kind of behind the scenes, and I think it was very important for them, the chiefs being on the benches, the coaches and things like that, doing that time, and the citizens getting another view of what an officer is or a fireman is without being in uniform per se. They're humans as well. And on that note, I want to give Ken, our ordinance person, kudos for, we had a trailer down the street from us for months sitting there, and he got it moved, which was nice. And speaking on ordinances, let's talk a little bit about the snow. Maybe through the chair to Mr. Mizzi, when contractors come in, they're notified. I hope they know that we have an ordinance of 3 feet of the snow. Are they responsible for removing that snow? Can he, well.
Through the chair, I'll answer that real quick. We can only get to the ones we license.
Right. Okay.
And we try to push the regulations.
I think it's just important that they know if they're going to be doing the job. Back in the day, we were talking when we had a forest here, we could put the snow in a dump truck and take it to Champaign Park and dump it, and obviously we can't. But on that note, DPS did a great job cleaning the streets. They came a couple times coming through, and that was a big plus. So.
They actually did haul the snow out too this year. This
Did
time
they?
at the Big
Did
Falls,
they?
yeah.
Good. Because I mean, there was some where you can't even see or turn.
The downtown snow, they came with front end loader, loaded it up and took it out.
Good.
So.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Adams, Allen Park, Cowell Avenue. I want to thank the police department and the fire department for the reports. It's always good to have an honest picture of how hard they do work, how many runs they make in servicing our citizens in Allen Park. I was very happy to hear in the one of the reports that the police department is considering finding a way to get Safety Town back on board for us. I requested a meeting with the city administrator last summer to discuss just that purpose, and we talked about how important it was to not only the children, but the parents of the children in this city, that they develop a safe understanding of how to conduct themselves with regard to walking to and from school, stranger danger, and all the other elements that make up a life of a young person in the city. And I'm very hopeful that we do get that program reestablished. That's about all. Thank you very much for the snow emergency. Once you had it on Facebook, or the police department did, I knocked on a few doors and let the folks know that we were very serious about having those cars off the roads so the plows could come through and plow safely, because emergency vehicles have to come through when they're needed. And thank you for the hard work you did all through the snowstorm.
Don't see any other citizens coming forward, so we'll go to the consent agenda. There's 8 items there, and I would take a motion to.
Motion.
Support. By Mayor Pro Tem Keenan, supported by Councilman Hayes. Is that who?
DiGiulio.
DiGiulio, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna
Is there
change
any
my voice
discussion?
here. You know, I must sound like Dennis.
I don't see any one requesting discussion, so we'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you all very much. The chief, the fire station software, please.
Excuse me. I'm not exactly sure what information you guys have in front of you. Do you have any?
Your memo.
My memo. Let me grab it. Okay. essentially what we would like to do, and we were kind of muddling along with our old software until the whole idea of upgrading our IT came along. And I got to talking with SMEA, and the idea here is that if we're going to be doing these upgrades to IT, now is the time to upgrade our software to what essentially every other department downriver is using. And it's something we should have did quite a few years ago, but because we had $0, we've been kind of using what we've had. The current software we have, we're looking at, it's the same thing. It's kind of like what City Hall does here with the BSNA software. We have a seriously old version of Firehouse software, it's called, and essentially it is the BSNA of fire departments. What we're looking to do now is upgrading to what they call an online version, just like the .NET version of BSNA, where our records, and which are quite cumbersome, would be stored off-site in a remote server and backed up by the actual Firehouse company, and we would no longer have to maintain this 4-foot-high, I don't know how many terabyte server that we currently do that has right now currently 16 years of records for everything we do at the fire department running on it. It has gotten to the point where the servers, I want to say 10 to 12 years old. It is bogged down horribly. It takes 10 minutes to load. Like if I try to look up a run from 6 months ago, it takes about 10 minutes to load it up, and then to even try to print it for somebody who has requested through FOIA, it is a cumbersome process. So I started having discussions with SMEA about this, and essentially there would be the upfront cost of starting up, which would be, I want to say it's around $11,000, which I know sounds like a horrible number. But what it will save us in the long run is, and I'm not sure how much the server costs that they have planned to put into my department, it will save us to not have to use our own server. We will be able to just run off the City Hall servers with the microwave link we have now, and we won't have to maintain a completely separate server at the fire department, which I can imagine will cost us way more than $11,000 over the next few years. This is what I'm looking for tonight is kind of a blessing from you guys to keep working at this with SMEA. They have to figure out exactly how they'll have to adjust hardware-wise what we will buy for the fire station, which will be down. The cost of our hardware that we're looking to, that was originally budgeted for the big IT upgrade will be lower because we won't have to store these huge amounts of data on site. So that's why I'm standing here in front of you to see what you all think of that. What this will also give us too is the ability, currently what we have now is you can think of the Firehouse version we use as a huge file cabinet that just stores electronic files. It does let us report to the National Fire Incident Reporting System, which is required by us. We do it on a monthly basis. And we're able to pull files and print them. What the online version will do for us is it can go completely mobile. We can put mobile data terminals in our fire trucks, much like what the police officers have in their police cars. It will give us the ability to utilize computer-aided dispatch. When runs are sent to us from dispatch, our firefighters will get into the truck. It will be on the screen, the location. It will show us hydrant locations, the nearest ones to any given house. It will show us our run history for that house. It will show us any information the dispatch finds relevant that we should know if there's been previous domestic violence calls to a certain house and we may be getting ourselves into some horrible situations. And that hardware that would go in the trucks, I have written an AFG grant for. We have not heard back yet, but it would be very easy at that point if we receive that grant to then put all this information we're talking about will be right into our responding apparatus. Firehouse software is used by 99.9% of the fire departments in the United States. It really is no vendor. If we get it, we are getting it directly from Firehouse, who's owned by Xerox. They pretty much have a monopoly on this, just kind of like the police officers use the OSS&I. We have Firehouse, the City Hall uses the BSNA. It's kind of that line of thing. There really is no way to go out for bid on it because it's a proprietary vendor. They sell their own software. Working through SMEA, I believe, is the smartest thing for us to do. They're the ones that have set up all the communities around us. Currently, like I said, the other three, Southgate, Lincoln Park, and Wyandotte all run this software. 2 of those cities are running the MDTs, or mobile data terminals, in their vehicles. Lincoln Park is the only one that is not at this time. And like I said, I did write a grant for one. We're just waiting to hear back. And I would not put the terminals in our trucks unless I can get that grant, because that's about $9,000 per vehicle, which I know we can't afford. But at least switching to the software now while we're doing the IT upgrade would save us the cost of putting this huge server in the fire department, and then a year down the road saying, oh, we don't need it anymore because we switched to the new version of the software. So that's,
Chairman,
I'll make a motion for the purpose of discussion.
I'll second the motion that Mr. LaFawn proceed with his investigation and research and coordinate with SME and report back.
Well, wait a minute, what's your motion? Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm gonna order that myself.
Because I just thought I heard 2 things from the left.
I make a motion to accept the chief's recommendation for the purpose of discussion. And the discussion is that I'd like a little bit of clarification on your line item number 8. I did not fully understand towards the end of that when you said that you will cover the annual fees through your computer break fix line item. And as stated earlier, we'll purchase MD. So help me understand.
Hold a moment. You have a motion.
In a second.
Well, I don't know if this is a second.
I'll second it, whatever you say.
Well,
all right.
Easy, you know me.
Okay. But anyway, I don't quite fully understand exactly how we're paying for this, so if you could just enlighten me, that would be helpful.
currently, with our current version of the software, we pay around $1,000 a year for software upgrades. That's all we get. They email me a file, SMEA comes out, installs it on the server, and we run it. Any other costs involved with our server, whether it be hardware, glitches, anything else, we pay over and above that out of pocket to maintain that server through SMEA. If we switch to this online version, we will no longer have to run this huge server. So my annual fee will be, $2,390. So it's $1,390 more of an annual fee, but what we're getting for that essentially is we're maintenance free at that point.
But the upfront costs.
The upfront cost, which is
Where are
the
you taking that out?
$11,199, that's what I am proposing, that it gets covered under the IT fees for the upgrades for the city.
Okay, so that's not coming out of your budget, that's.
I don't have it
you're
in my
talking
budget.
about for the moved budget.
Right. When I made this budget, there was no talk of doing this IT upgrade, so I was just gonna keep muddling along with my software. But since this is coming up and it's gonna happen, now is the time to strike while the iron's hot, because otherwise I'm gonna buy this huge new server that in a year or two, when we finally do upgrade, because Firehouse stops, supporting their old version, which they will eventually do, now I'm just gonna have this huge boat anchor that we spend a bunch of money on.
Well, I like the idea, I'm just curious, I know that, I believe that some of the funds for the move are being captured out of the bond money, and I don't know if we can capture this out of that bond money, so we'd have to know how we're gonna, where it's gonna come from. This is what my concern is.
I thought Mr. Cady reported that he had $400,000 set aside for lease that we're only gonna use about 45 of, and he had about 320,000 for something else that he was gonna transfer to do all this IT phone move stuff.
Bob, do you wanna come up and tell us how we're gonna pay for this? That
There
would
you
be
go.
helpful.
I'm just the idea guy. I'm just trying to make sure we don't waste money buying hardware that in a couple years we don't need.
I don't have that memo in front of me exactly to quote the numbers, but there was a contingent, not your memo, the one on the move that I reported to council. There was a contingency available, and I want to say it was like $178,000, but I don't have that memo in front of me, but there is a contingency for these kinds of things in there. If council would like, I can pull that number up and email you exactly what's there based on those numbers. It should be enough to cover this and more.
You're confident that we have $11,199 available to cover this as part of the move project?
Yes, and as the chief was saying, this would probably reduce the cost of his server, so it's kind of a yin for yang there too, so.
I had an informal, thanks, Bob. I had an informal conversation with Ken Mackey from SME today because I was trying to get prepared for tonight as much as possible. Of course, they're scrambling, trying to do things too. And from what he's telling me, he says within a year or two, this is definitely going to be a wash. And then from then on out, we'll be saving money just from not having to maintain this. I'm not even sure how big our server is. All I know is I heat a whole office in my station with it because it puts off so much heat. It's big, and you can imagine the 16 years worth of run data, being stored on one server like that. What kind of volume that is.
Mayor,
Councilman Cisco.
I'd just like to commend Chief LaFond about looking into this, because we're finally maybe trying to be proactive instead of reactive.
There's the word I was looking for.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we go through these times where we let everything go to the end. We say we don't have money for this, and it ends up costing us a lot more money
Right.
at the end of the day.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to get out ahead of. And I say I came in late to the game on this. All of a sudden, okay, it was the IT thing was going to happen, and I started thinking to myself, well, now is the time to do this upgrade that everybody else has been doing. And it really will be a great advantage to our responding units, our responding firefighters and officers. From a safety standpoint, it's going to help response times. It's going to help a lot of things. You get something as silly as, our dispatchers call us now, they'll say an address. Well, if they transpose two numbers, it can mean the difference between being off of Van Born or being off of V-Course on a street. I use that because I know that's your neighborhood. And it's happened to us before on a garage fire. With this, if we keep our fingers crossed that I get an AFG grant, I've been pretty lucky with them. If I get the mobile data terminals through the grant to put in each unit, even if they screw it all up in their head going out there, when they get in the truck, it's going to be on the screen waiting for them when they get in the truck. The type of run it is, like I say, it's computer-aided dispatch, so there'll be a map, hydrant locations, any issues will be red flagged, at that address previously, so it's going to be a huge safety improvement for our responders too. So that's why I really want, tried to get in on this. I know I'm in here at the 11th hour, but it was something I didn't want to just let pass by.
But, and I also know, as to Mr. Cady coming up, is that during the moving committee times, we've talked about money and contingencies, and we do have, I believe, money for that. So I think we need to listen to our department heads. As long as everything is good and in order, we should take some direction from them.
And even if you guys even approve these numbers tonight, I will still do everything in my power to make this come in as cheap as we can get it done and still be done right. I'll be all over it. So, any other questions?
I have one, Chief. We talked about 11,199, 2,390, but there's that 4,070. It's really 17,659 that you're looking for, because you need monitor support and you need OSSI CAD interface.
Well, the stuff at the bottom, the 4,000, will come into play if we get the grant for the mobile data terminals.
Oh,
so the installation is the 11,199. The 2,390, I'm already have budgeted 1,000 of that for my annual. I've been putting Firehouse off. They keep sending me invoices and I haven't paid them because I'm waiting to see if we're going to upgrade. So 1,000 of that is already covered. So I'm looking for 11,199 and the 1390 of that second part tonight. And then if the grant comes through, that I hope it will, then in the future it'll be another 4,000 to get those up and running software-wise.
So you have a grant that's going to do what?
It will pay for the hardware. It will pay for the mobile data terminals for each unit. And I might even be able to get it to pay for that 4,000. It will depend on how well we estimated the cost and the installation.
So you've heard the two numbers that he has. Is that acceptable to the mover and the second?
Yes.
Then I'll ask for a vote at this time.
And just through the chair, we need, pursuant to the bidding ordinance, you want to include the language that there's a finding that there would be no economic or other advantage to the city seeking competitive bids. And as the chief pointed out, it's a sole source. So that would have to be included.
I will refer to the previous minutes with the proper section. Thanks to you, Joe.
There you go.
Would this software give you the ability to be able to pull up structural drawings for some of the bigger buildings if you were in
we'll be able to pull up in the trucks anything that we attach to those addresses. You have ability to attach PDF files, all different kinds of files. And I don't know if I actually mentioned it, the DPS software that they're looking to do an upgrade with the GPS mapping of the hydrants and water main sizes, it is compatible with their software too. So literally, it will show us even the size of the water main running in front of any commercial building in the city.
Chief, one question that brings to mind. Did the blueprints that we scanned and were supposed to give you, did that ever get on your system?
I still do not have access to those.
So we spent $140,000 on the savings of it's going to save our city from catastrophic results, but nothing came of
I
it.
really had nothing to do with that. That was before I was chief.
That was Mr. Wadlick's bailiwick.
I wish I did. I'm sure that is something that, especially when we get this new IT system
I
in,
know we
will
spent
work.
the money to scan them. Where they were scanned to, God only
The building
knows.
department
Do you
has
have
access.
Chief, in the police department? Any?
The building department has access to them. I think currently it's an issue with the network. But.
All right, if there's no other questions, I ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried.
Thank you very much.
Again, Chief. Mr. Cady, you have the last item here on our agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As members of this national IPA consortium, we get some pretty good pricing on different items, and it was suggested, I don't know if we were at a bar or if it was a staff meeting anymore, but staff meeting, I guess, but we look at copiers. I don't know if you've been in any of the departments and seen the state of the copiers we have, but 6 of the copiers aren't networked at all. They have no capabilities to scan or fax. They're just copiers. They're not under contract. We own them. Some are so old they can't even be repaired anymore. I believe the library currently has both their copiers down and cannot be maintained any further. In City Hall, the copiers we have, even though they're under lease and under contract, the service we have is well, it's yeah.
Subpar.
I don't want to use the word, but I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, our copier in our office broke down. We called for service. The phone just rang and rang and rang. I don't know if they're out of business or something happened to their phone. Me and the treasurer ended up taking the copier apart after we watched a YouTube video to fix it ourselves. So we looked at the pricing on this IPA contract, and the pricing is very aggressive. It turns out that we can replace the 6 copiers that we have in the outlying buildings and the 3 in City Hall with new technology that is networked with fax boards, scanners, for about $94 more a month than we're paying currently for the 3 copiers in City Hall. Toshiba would buy out the lease of the old copiers, and that means we would have 9 new copiers, all with capabilities that are 21st century capable. And it would all be under one maintenance contract for one service call. What this also means is that per the Toshiba contract is that all maintenance and service would be guaranteed for 5 years. There'd be no price increases. And I think if you looked at my spreadsheet with the pros and cons, that includes all the toner. I believe it includes even staples. As far as the $94 a month extra, I believe we'll save that probably within the first week, because right now what departments are doing is they're spending their supplies budget to put ink in these machines that they own. It's costing way more than they're worth to maintain. So what we're asking is council's approval basically to replace the 9 copiers with the Toshiba contract. It should be also noted that I wanted to make sure that we did due diligence. I was approached by a couple other companies, Konica Minolta and Canon, to bid this. I let them bid this. They could not beat the IPA pricing from Toshiba.
I'll make a motion again for the purpose of discussion.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan, supported by Councilman Cisco. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Mr. Cady, and I just had a little bit of an opportunity to look at the drawings that we received today, but are we confident that the number that we need for City Hall, once we move from this building across the way here, is 3 copiers, or could we do with 2? Are we gonna need 4? I mean, have we given any thought, I know we look at what we have currently, but have we given any thought to what the layout is gonna be over there and what we're actually gonna need over there?
Yes, if you look at the final drawing, which I believe we have now, buildings in its own area at the front part of City Hall, the treasurer, the finance department, and water is in the middle, and the clerk's off down at the end, a little bit farther away from us. The clerk's needs are so much different than ours that even though we could probably share a printer, he does a lot of mono copies that it requires a lot of speed, where we do more 11 by 14s, those kinds of things. So at this time, and if you look down the future, supposing we move to another building, I think we're better off to stay the way we are as far as City Hall. The other copiers, obviously, are all in other buildings. You got recreation, police, fire. Police is actually here in our building, but they're way over on the other side, and they will be in the new building also. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Hayes?
Having leased copiers many times in the past, the killer is the per copy charge. You know, you got about 0.8 cents or something on some and a little more on others. So every time you run a copy and every time some employee decides to run off 50 flyers for their family's birthday weekend or whatever. So I guess my question is, do we have any, they used to have counters where everybody would be assigned a counter where Maureen's counter is counter number AB2 or something like that. And then you know exactly who ran what, because you can run off millions of copies, and millions even times 0.8 cents is a lot of money. And so the lease price is just one function of this
Right.
thing. It's the cost per copy that really can hurt you. And if you don't have good controls, which I'm not convinced our city has, you know, maybe under your watch it will be, but you know, it's very easy to let that get away from us. And obviously, the more copies you run, the more wear and tear on the machine, and even if it's guaranteed for 5 years, you're going to burn through a lot of copies over the period.
Well, one of the things that I've always tried to do, and wherever I've been, is to try to go as paperless as possible. I mean, we've talked about tablets and things like that to email stuff to people instead of, you know, cutting down a tree every week to print an agenda. The other thing that I like about this is, technology-wise, once we hook these to the network and we can scan documents and send them electronically, there's no charge for that. The meter doesn't click when we scan a document. Right now, every time we go with a copy, it's obviously costing us whatever 0.0 cents a page. But when you look at the cost that the departments are spending now, based on the fact they're buying their own toner and how expensive toner is, I'm sure it'll be a big savings over what we're doing currently.
And the last question is, do you think it's possible or probable that we could wean Mr. Clerk over there off of this need of his to generate this volume of paper? I mean, he seems dead set on giving us more and more each week.
Well, we're looking at options right now for council as far as
Is there a plan for him or a
that.
treatment plan for that kind of behavior?
I honestly believe he's hopeless, but
Yeah.
we'll keep working on him.
Thank you. Just as long as you're looking into it, I'm happy with that.
Any other
You
questions?
kill a few trees here or there, son.
Thank you, Chief. Another big thing is that we're hoping that by doing this, and we can network these copiers, that it'll reduce the need to have these copiers on, or the printers on everybody's desk. One of the things we found is that we can send everything right now from our desktops to the copiers at a much greater savings than going to inkjets or the cost of those cartridges. So I'm hoping we'll reduce them. I know we have in City Hall, and I'm hoping that'll be a trend in the outbuildings too. Thanks, Chief.
I see no other questions coming forth from the council. Ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's
Thank
carried.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Katie. Other business, does any of the council wish to have any remarks? Councilman DeGiulio?
Okay, first of all, it was really great to see our community came together for Blake Bowman and his family. I guess that's what Allen Park is all about. I attended the visitation for him on January 24th, and they were lined up out into the parking lot. So we did come together for this young man. Through the chair to Mrs. Folks, or maybe Mr. Cady, I attended the recent hearing in Judge Cohen's courtroom, and the former city administrator, the former city administrator and the former mayor each had separate attorneys, and I know there was a $10,000 fee placed against the mayor. Who's paying all this? Who paid for the attorneys, the two separate attorneys?
MML represented one of the parties, and the other party had separate counsel, which he paid for himself, and I don't really know which is which.
So MML did pay for one?
Yes.
How about the $10,000 fine fee?
And the fine won't fall against us or
MML won't pay that?
No.
No. Okay, let's see, I guess then I want to go on to, I read a letter in the Heritage newspaper this past week, and I was disappointed to see all the criticism about Ecorse Road. The DDA and the members of the DDA, and especially Jennifer Kibbe, they put a lot of work into that. And we're not always happy with what we see. I mean, I'm not happy with the benches that face the buildings, but I'm not going to knock it. And I think we should wait until summer and see how things work out with those flower boxes and curbs along the sidewalk. And, you know, right now it's all full of snow. It's not a beautiful sight, but I'll tell you, in the fall it was. And the lighting that's been put up there, I think the lighting is really great. I mean, I just like looking at those lights. They are really nice. And so I think that letter was unfair towards Ms. Kibbe and towards the mayor and council here. So that's what I have to say about that. So let's wait and see what happens this summer. Let's see how it goes. Maybe there'll be things that have to be readjusted, and I'm sure Ms. Kibbe will take care of the problem. She always does. We're really glad to have you in the Downtown Development Authority. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me speak.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll be short. I too want to thank the gentleman that put together the fundraiser. I have not seen the rink packed like that in a long time. I was really, really surprised at how busy it was, and thankful for that. And it was a good opportunity to, you know, to interact with folks in the city that we don't see very often. So I was thankful for that. Really, what I wanted to say is that Allen Park has lost another member of our community that has really, for years and years, stepped up to the plate and has served on commissions and has been a member here. And Gino Perone passed away, I understand, earlier this week. And he was a gentleman that came up here many times, always had good things to say, and was just a real blessing to the city, and really always willing to do whatever he could to help move the city of Allen Park forward and his neighbors, and somebody that I really appreciated getting to know. So our thoughts and prayers, I'm sure, are with his family. That's all I have.
I'll have a
Councilman
word.
Hayes?
I would say that Gino was like an older Charles, very positive guy, always up making a good remark and trying to keep it upbeat. So yeah, he will be sorely missed. I agree with you, Bob. I did receive tonight, or this afternoon, some architectural sketches, which I can barely read because they're so small, but, and I take note that these were apparently adjusted in December 14th, and it looks like January 6th they were reviewed again. You know, we just had a meeting last week, and the topic of the plan size of the building that we may or may not build, you know, I just feel like sometimes it's rather insulting to sit here and try to offer input to my city, to our city, suggesting, why don't we get a chance to look at this and have some input and be slapped around like we are by this further evidence of the ongoing incompetence, in my view, and I've said this for 8 months ago, I said this, that the administrator is so ill-equipped to be in her position. I don't know why she doesn't just simply resign, you know, and I think the city broadly believes that, and you know, we're gonna just cram this stuff down our throats. We're gonna get a millage shoved down our throat again, and it's because there's no planning. I just mentioned to the chief, the last administration spent $140,000 on a blueprint copying machine. They were gonna copy every blueprint in the city, scan them so that the fire department can have them on their monitors, can know where the light switches are and everything about the house, the electrical plan. All that stuff sitting in some box somewhere. I think the scanning machine's right back there where they videotaped this meeting. Whether they did it or didn't do it, I know we paid for it because we paid a total of $140,000 to CompuWare. The piece of equipment, I think, was $40,000, and we were assured that this was going to be the most life-saving benefit to our community. And that's why, Chief, you know, when you bring up an idea that sounds like it's going to save lives, you know, some of us have heard that before, and I don't doubt you because I believe you're an honest broker in this matter. But we've seen other people get up here and beat their breast about how they're saving the city money and helping the city, and we proved to them that we could have had the same thing done for $30,000. I had an estimate from a company that does it for a living. Instead, we insisted on paying CompuWare $25 an hour to have some high school kid run these papers through a machine to scan them. So I guess I'm asking somebody, I would ask Mrs. Folks, but I don't expect her to follow up. So I'll ask you, Mr. Cady, or you, Chief LaFont, or even Chief Wilkowitz, if you can explore with maybe Mr. Boomer, who I don't have much confidence, frankly, that he'll follow up, but ask somebody what happened to that stuff, where is it, and is it salvageable? For God's sake, we spent a lot of money on it, and I'm sick and tired of spending and then respending. So please, look into it, and please, all of us, let's say a prayer that the state will realize that our concerns were real. Some of my fellows here came to this awakening later than others of us, but you know, this has been obvious since virtually day one. And anybody who didn't catch it early on, maybe I'm just more sensitive to these things. I don't know, having been a manager and having had to run big organizations. So I hope that our prayers are answered and things are resolved by the end of the week. Thank you very much.
Councilman Cisco.
That's really tough to follow, isn't it? Let's see if I can help. You know, and I'll agree about the 140,000. You know, Dennis and I sat on the other side over here and listened to that spiel. Not during this administration, but the previous administration. And let me draw a comparison, maybe to something. On buying the property next door, the Southfield property, the previous administration, it was a 7-0 vote to buy that property next door without an appraisal. You know, some of obviously our powers have been diminished here, if not wholly taken away. But we made a stand 2 weeks ago, and we voted 7-0 together to correct the problem. Not to sugarcoat it, but to dot the I's, cross the T's. So let's look at what happened in the past and what's happening now. We are trying not to let these things happen again. We are doing our work that we were elected for. There's 28,000 people in this city that we represent. And that's what we all try to do individually. And at times we come together as a group with one mind to say, on that specific issue, there's something really wrong here. how do we address it? We are not allowed to address it in any way with the state. The RTAB says city administrator is the person, point of contact, period. Where do we go? As a mayor and council, where do we go? What do we do? So we have to get people's attention. And I believe 2 weeks ago, we got attention. You saw an article in the Free Press, you saw Channel 4 here, Channel 4 and Channel 7, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, they're still digging into some things. But we are not going to let what happened to the city in the previous administration happen again. We are not going to allow it. And as far as I'm concerned, if we all have to resign on this thing to make a bigger point, I think that's what we should do. And we do it because we live here. We have neighbors. We've been supported by a number of people, whether it's all or some or part. But we would really not represent this city well by doing anything different. And I just want to tell you I'm sure the mayor might talk about this a little bit more, so I don't want to take anything away from him, but when we had the meeting with Treasury last Thursday, you were all very well represented. The mayor did a great job. Councilman Keenan did a great job. And I was there. So I think we all did very well. Each of us brought up a number of issues. Any issues that you can think of were brought up. I think we hit on all subjects. I think we hit on all cylinders. So I think you could be proud of what's happened recently. And we hope that the people understand that we did this in the name of Allen Park, not in the name of an individual that might have an axe to grind or anything like that. That's not where we went. We acted on behalf of the city like we were supposed to. We fulfilled our duties by voting 7-0. And I hope everybody understands that, and I hope everybody supports us. And I thank you for all that.
Any other remarks? Oh, the clerk, please.
Real quick, I got a message from Chaplain Hunt, and he was actually on scene at a suicide, so he apologizes. He was not here tonight, so he does apologize. And sorry I'm a little off. Gino Perone is probably one of the last of the old timers, but that's not really. Let me go back. Back in 1995, I started coming to council meetings. There was a group of 6, 7, 8 older gentlemen. It was Joe Abdu, George Verbeck, Jack Seidlicks, Ted, who's thank God still around, and Gino Perone. Those guys would come to every single meeting, no matter, because there'd be a time that they were the only ones in the audience. And it's just sad to see that another one pass away. Gino was a great guy. To know him was unbelievable, because he always walked into City Hall. Even 2 weeks ago, he got out of the hospital, came in to see how everyone was doing, gave us all chocolates, and then the next day he was back in the hospital. So it's a little hard, but I'd just like to recognize Gino. And when people see Ted Scrocky around here, the grumpy old man, don't treat him like that. He is literally the last of the old timers I remember. And why it hits so home is a lot of things about people posting when meetings are. It used to be in one spot in the clerk's office, and to be honest, I wasn't clerk at the time, but meetings weren't always posted. But that group of guys fought to get the simplest legal things done at one time in this city. So it just said, I'd like to recognize Gino and just say thank you for up in heaven. Thank you for everything you've done for the city. So everybody, thank you all for coming out. God bless you and good night.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I'm not going to go back and give the report again. I think I reported earlier to some citizens' request as to the meeting that we had with the Department of Treasury last week, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, supported.
Moved by Councilman DiGiulio, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan. All in favor signify by aye. Opposed, same sign. It's carried. We are adjourned at